I forgot to do a little whoop. It's the after party, everyone! Woo!
BBC Radio 1's Teen Awards, The After Party, with Jamila and Alid.
It's 2012, and the BBC's annual celebration of inspiring teenagers has just finished.
Now, we have another inspirational young lady in the studio with us. She has these little bands for her charity. And
Which I'm wearing.
Indeed, that Alid is now wearing, that I've been wearing all day. I wore one on stage. And we had, One Direction wearing them. Hello, Meg. How are you?
Yes, good, thank you. Had an amazing day.
Sitting backstage with Alid and Jamila is 17-year-old Megan Bhari. She's talking about her charity Believe in Magic, which helps grant wishes to seriously ill children.
So what's your year been like?
It's been the most incredible year, really. Believe in Magic has grown so much.
Now, you were very ill when you decided to set up the charity, so can you tell us about why you wanted to do it?
Yeah, well, I've had 24 operations in the last few years.
Wow.
And I've been in and out of hospital and seen so many other very poorly children. And I just sort of realised how much the other children were going through. And just wanted to do something to sort of give them the magical experiences back and to be able to be children again.
Believe in Magic has only been going for a few months, but it's already granted hundreds of wishes to poorly children, putting on parties, taking kids and their families on holiday to places like Disney. The charity also has the backing of several high-profile celebrities, including the world's biggest pop group at the time, One Direction. The band's singers, including Harry Styles, even wear Believe in Magic merchandise to show their support.
You have the boys, they're wearing your wristbands in 40 countries, so now your wristbands are available.
Do you know how many companies would kill for that opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, that's
so well.
actually ridiculous. How do you persuade these people to get involved?
I think we've been so lucky. I set up the charity last year, and it's run by me and my mum. But I think people really like that because I'm 17 and because I've been poorly myself, it means they kind of get it more than if it's just... I don't really know, I think they get the story behind it.
Megan sounds calm, composed and quietly excited. But her life is about to be ripped apart. Defending herself will have far-reaching consequences that nobody present that day could ever have predicted. For the last year, I've been investigating the story of Megan Bhari and her charity Believe in Magic. It's one of the most extraordinary, unusual and troubling stories I've ever come across. It involves a battle between parents fighting for their children's lives, internet trolls, celebrity superfans, and one of the biggest pop groups in the world. It plays out in hospitals, hotels, cruise ships, and in the very ordinary English suburbs. All of us fall ill sometimes, and when we do, we go online. For some, that's a lifesaver, a source of comfort and advice. But for others, like Megan, it can turn into a trap with tragic consequences. It's just awful. But, oh God, when you hear all that, it's like, oh my God. It becomes very real. You stop thinking about all the investigation and you're just thinking, what is this girl going through? I'm Jamie Bartlett. This is Believe in Magic, Episode 1, Megan. In many ways, Megan Bhari is a fairly ordinary child whose misfortune gives her the chance to do something extraordinary. She's born in 1995 in the upmarket Surrey town of Guildford to Jean and Pinder. Her parents separate when she's young, so Megan grows up with her mum around the south of England. At primary school, she's outgoing, friendly, and a huge Disney fan. She's one of those kids who queues around the block to attend a premiere. She dreams one day of being a pop star and records a song in a professional studio with a couple of her friends. A pretty normal life, really, until she's 13 years old.
Megan Bhari, Facebook, 2013.
In a blink of an eye, my whole life changed when one morning I just couldn't wake up. By the time we arrived at A&E, I was screaming in pain and was admitted immediately.
For months, Megan goes from hospital to hospital as medical specialists try to figure out what's wrong. Why she's in constant pain, why she struggles to lie down flat. Finally, Megan is diagnosed with something called idiopathic intracranial hypertension. It's a rare and slightly mysterious brain condition where the brain fluid can't easily drain, which causes a build-up of pressure around the skull. Doctors sometimes struggle to diagnose IIH. The word idiopathic means of unknown origin. Megan starts to post on a dedicated internet forum, looking for advice from others going through the same thing as her. Natalie Garrett's daughter had recently been diagnosed with the same condition as Meg.
I was constantly online looking for information, and then I found the IIH forum, and I posted on the forum about my daughter and got lots of replies, and one of the replies was from Meg.
Meg would tell Natalie about the constant pain, the frequent hospital visits, and the painful procedures to reduce her brain pressure. In turn, Natalie would share her daughter Lana's experiences. Eventually they meet offline too, because Meg starts to raise money for Natalie's IIH charity. And no matter how much pain she's in, Megan is always positive, always upbeat.
I can't explain that enough. What an amazing human being she was. She really was. She had more sympathy and love for people than I'd ever met anybody before.
What sort of things gave you that impression?
Just so much patience and so much kindness and so much happiness and so much understanding and so much support.
And how was she with your children?
They adored her and she adored them. She got on with children so well, really, really well. It was beautiful to see.
Megan's condition is so bad that she leaves school and her mother Jean becomes more or less her full-time carer. But Megan decides she wants to set up her own charity to help poorly children, people like her. Making other kids happy is what makes her happy, makes her forget her own troubles somehow.
And so she phoned me and she said, I'm going to start a children's charity. And I said, oh, Meg, come on, darling, you're so poorly. You can't do this. Just stop. Just stop. And she was determined. It was her perseverance and her intelligence and her will to fight her disease.
Megan, who is just 16, and her mother Jean start their own charity. They call it Believe in Magic.
There are so many amazing children. In an ideal world, we'd be able to do everything for everyone.
They start working 12, 14-hour days, trying to raise money to grant wishes for seriously ill children. Jean and Meg turn out to be brilliant fundraisers. The charity is small, it's really just the two of them, but they managed to do more than most charities 10 times the size.
We had a wonderful party a couple of weeks ago.
There are constant fundraisers, raffles, sponsored bike rides, Just Giving appeals. There are lots of worthy causes out there asking for money. What sets Believe in Magic apart is Meg's unique talent for PR. She understands the modern importance of celebrity backing. So when she's invited to meet pop stars One Direction, just after they come third on the X Factor, she jumps at the chance. The band are moved by her story and agree to help. Soon the One Direction boys are doing regular fundraisers for Believe in Magic. One year, on a site called Prizeo, they raised £400,000 for the charity by raffling off backstage passes and the chance to meet them in person.
Hi, it's Louis from One Direction. We've been working with Believe in Magic now for a few years and we think Meg and the team are absolutely incredible. So to any chance to see us in London on the 26th of September, donate below. Thank you.
Even the band's parents get involved. Harry Styles' mum, Anne Twist, treks to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, that's 6,000 metres by the way, to help Meg and Jean bring in more money. Louis Tomlinson and his mum even host a spectacular fundraising ball at the Natural History Museum in London. As the One Direction fans gather outside and scream, inside it's the poorly children who are the stars. On YouTube, I can see they're dressed up in gowns and suits. Some accompanied by their nurses, others midway through chemotherapy, as they watch the famous magician Dynamo get their faces painted and listen to One Direction singer Louis.
Thank you very much everybody for coming. It is an incredible privilege for me and my mum to work with Believe in Magic. Their work is totally inspiring and continue blows the way.
And Louis' mother, Joanna.
Anyone here that knows Jean and Meg, they believe in introduction to their kindness. For everyone else, these two ladies are the charity. So no admin, no drivers, no advertising department, they do everything themselves. They ask for nothing back to keep making that magic.
Although Megan has a gift for charming celebrities and raising money, what she really loves is using the money and connections to grant wishes.
So I'm Lucy Pettigini. I am 48 years old. I have 4 children. One sadly passed away when she was 5.5.
In 2008, Lucy received the news that no one wants to hear when her 18-month-old daughter Luna was diagnosed with cancer. People who've been through this talk of a life before and a life after a cancer diagnosis. How your old life disappears overnight, replaced by a new world of constant hospital trips, complicated medical terminology, treatments, sleepless nights and support groups. Doctors will help you with the medical stuff, but they can't do much to fix the sudden and desperate emotional upheaval that accompanies it. The stuff that happens outside the hospital doors. And that's where Believe in Magic steps in.
So whilst in the hospital with Luna, I think the nurses referred us to the charity.
Lucy's daughter was being treated at London's famous children's hospital, Great Ormond Street, the same place where Megan was a patient.
They obviously knew of her charity. They would basically write or send an email to the charity and tell them a little bit of the outline about the child and to say if there's anything you could do to offer a nice treat to this family, please, this is their details.
With Believe in Magic, the treats often took the form of exuberant parties. So tell me what it was like the first.
Oh, it was amazing.
First you said Pirates and Princess.
Pirates and Princesses. The kids were spoilt rotten. As I said, there was entertainers. There was a man with animals. The kids, obviously all the children dressed up, and every single child there felt like they were so important, and they weren't poorly. They weren't in a hospital. It was honestly, it was out of this world.
And did you go to any of the other events that they were putting on around that time?
We did. So we were invited to Buckingham Palace to decorate the Christmas tree.
What was that like?
Amazing. All the children were given beautiful handmade dresses that were made by whoever made the bridesmaids' dresses for Kate and William. They had dresses delivered to them and shoes, and we all met at a hotel, I think it was the Langham, and limousines, or Bentleys I think it was, took us all in a massive convoy to Buckingham Palace.
Lucy remembers Megan would do anything to make a child happy. Sometimes Jean would tell Meg off because she'd offered to pay for everyone's train fares or promised to find parents hotels if they didn't want to travel home after an event.
Jean would roll her eyes a lot, but Meg wouldn't say no to anyone.
When Lucy's daughter Luna was having a difficult week, Megan found out that Luna loved the children's entertainer Mr. Tumble. A few days later, Megan managed to get Mr. Tumble to record Luna a personal get-well message. She did this kind of thing for countless children. We heard this a lot, how hard Megan worked for others while ill herself. Natalie Garrett remembers the moment when she heard that Megan's health problems were even more serious than first thought. She was at a pub in Surrey, and Jean had some terrible news about Megan's brain condition.
I got there late, so they'd already told my friends. They told me, my friends told me, Meg's been diagnosed with a pituitary tumour. And it hit me so hard. And I remember us all ended up going outside and crying. So Meg didn't see us cry because we thought, of all the people, this poor girl, she's been through so much and she's got IIH, which is bad enough anyway to be diagnosed with a tumour.
Did you speak to Megan?
Yeah, I gave them hugs and cried with them, and it was,
What would they say?
Jean was like, it's like the worst blow we could have, she's been suffering long enough and now we've got this and we don't know what the doctors are going to do about it.
Despite the tumour, Meg works tirelessly to grant wishes. One supporter remembers Megan running Believe in Magic while in and out of hospital, arriving at events with a huge bag of medication and arranging gifts from her own hospital bed. On tough days, Meg and Jean would sometimes post updates online about her condition, finding comfort in their thousands of online supporters.
Twitter, March 2012.
In a lot of pain waiting for an urgent MRI at Great Ormond Street.
Wish you could follow my 16-year-old daughter who has a brain tumour. Could you please tweet Megan, as she has a big hospital appointment about her tumour?
When David Cameron gives her an award for her work in 2015, the then Prime Minister sums it up perfectly. Meg has shown such extraordinary courage to put aside her own illness and focus on granting the dreams of others. But Meg's condition worsens. It gets so serious that the treatment she needs isn't available through the National Health Service in the UK. Meg needs specialised treatment in the US. Meg and Jean have spent the last 4 years working for little or no money to get Believe in Magic off the ground. They can't afford to go to the US and pay for this expensive private treatment. So they do what a growing number of people in this desperate situation have to do. They try to raise the money online. Jean says it's the hardest thing they've ever done, but they have no choice.
Welcome to the Just Giving page for Meg, a 19-year-old girl who has a brain tumour and desperately needs your help so she can have life-saving proton radiotherapy. Starting today, January the 14th, we have just 2 weeks to raise £120,000 so that Meg can start the urgent treatment that she needs. We're asking anyone and everyone who is able to help us. Please help give her this chance and get her the treatment that she needs. With much love, Jean, Meg's very proud mum.
They raise the money and travel to the US. But soon after that trip, Megan falls desperately ill again, and the pair are forced to go back online once more. But while Meg and Jean are fundraising for Meg's life-saving treatment, something unexpected happens. A friend of Meg and Jean's, who's trying to help them raise money, opens her Facebook one day to find a strange message from a woman called Sarah Smith.
Hi, what hospital is Megan being treated at? I'm doing this to protect you. I don't believe that Megan is at death's door. I'm not a crazy person. I think you need to look into this more and find out which hospital Megan is being treated at and who her doctors are.
Sarah Smith has no backstory. Her Facebook profile has hardly any friends or interests or previous posts. No one from the child cancer community knows her, which is unusual because this is a small world. I've spent years studying online behaviour, internet trolls, darknet drugs markets, scams. When people hide behind the screen, they're capable of doing awful things that they'd never do in real life. And trying to stop someone raising money for life-saving medical treatment is low, even by the internet standards. But Sarah Smith keeps asking more questions. Well, it's just one question, over and over. Does Megan Bhari really have a brain tumour? Asking that question starts a dizzying chain of events that involves private detectives, internet trackers, and accusations of murder. The answer to that simple question? Well, it's far darker than anyone could have predicted.
I've had my hospital letters, my documents, my PIC line here into my heart. I don't know what you want, and nothing will probably ever be good enough for you. I have every hope in the world that you will see how wrong you've been and apologise. And I'm very sorry to say that if you don't, you'll be hearing from us very, very soon.
Believe in Magic is a BBC Studios podcast. It's presented by me, Jamie Bartlett. The series producer is Ruth Mayer. The producer is Lucy Greenwell. Music by Jeremy Wormsley. Sound design by Peregrine Andrews. The executive producer is Innes Bowen. Archive in this episode is from Brooklands Radio and BBC Archive.
The only way I can explain and justify why I set up a fake profile is in case I was wrong, in case that I'd missed something.
So you posted under Sarah Smith?
Yeah.
Were you worried about just ramifications for you?
Yeah. And I didn't post publicly because I didn't want to stop the fundraising if I got it terribly, terribly wrong.
As soon as I heard about this story, I knew I needed to speak with Sarah Smith. The producer Ruth managed to track her down, and now we're sitting across from her in a meeting room in Wigan. Sarah Smith is not her real name, of course.
Are you recording now?
Yeah.
So, Joanna Ashcroft, have 3 children, and I work for our family business.
She's in her early 40s and spends her days juggling work and kids. But I can tell that she's obsessed with Believe in Magic. She walks into our interview carrying a folder of printouts and screen grabs. Proof, she says, of the strangest story we'll ever hear.
It would take up, time in the evenings and time in the day. It became all-consuming where I was never off my phone and constantly apologising to my husband and children. And I suppose that is an element of my personality that just was like a dog with a bone.
I'm Jamie Bartlett. This is Believe in Magic, Episode 2, The Sleuths. After Megan Bhari set up Believe in Magic to grant wishes to seriously ill children, she'd revealed to supporters that she needed life-saving medical treatment in the US. But in the background, Jo, or Sarah Smith, was asking questions about whether Meg was really ill. Megan's friends and supporters were dismayed. Many, like Lucy Pettigini, had seen firsthand how unwell Megan was and how hard she worked. Jo's questions were the last thing Megan needed.
From what Meg used to say was this woman was a pain in the arse. She was very demanding. She started up this, I'd call it a witch hunt kind of thing, asking questions like, oh, Meg's poorly, can we have your address? Which hospital are you in?
For months, Meg and Jean tried to ignore Jo and her alter ego, Sarah Smith. As more and more people became aware of Jo's questions, Megan's mum Jean decided to message the Believe in Magic supporters.
This has broken us more than I can even begin to describe. The disgusting abuse and accusation of trolls and the pain is intolerable.
Jo first met Megan at a Believe in Magic event in 2013. They became Facebook friends. Every now and again, Jo saw online that Believe in Magic was growing and was even supported by One Direction. Good for Meg, she thought. But then, in early 2015, Jo saw the Facebook post that set this whole story in motion. Megan urgently needed to raise £120,000 for something called proton beam radiotherapy in America.
I saw Help Save Meg, so I was like, wow, Megan's in a lot of trouble. Megan's really seriously ill. Help Save Meg. It sounds like that, Megan's life needs saving.
Jo watched the money pour in. Within 2 days, Jean and Meg hit their target of £120,000. But 48 hours later, Jean posted again with a dramatic development.
Unfortunately, we've learnt that Meg's MRI was much worse than we thought or could have even imagined. The tumour in her brain has not only grown in a very difficult location, but developed tentacles, which have wrapped itself around one of the two main arteries in Meg's brain and the primary blood supply to her brain.
It was too dangerous to operate. Meg and Jean were forced to cancel the proton beam therapy and promised to return the money raised. Supporters were devastated by the news.
Gutted to be reading this.
So very sad on reading this. I believe in magic, and you both will be in my thoughts constantly.
When I first read tentacles wrapping themselves around an artery, I thought that can't be right. Then I did some digging and found out there are certain kinds of brain tumours that can affect the blood supply to the brain. Maybe that's what Jean was trying to convey. From the outside, though, it looked off. Jo couldn't let it lie.
To me, it just all sounded very, very strange. And as I'm reading, I'm trying to see where she's been treated, who a doctor is, where the hospital is, and there was no information.
Is that unusual for this kind of thing?
Well, it might not be unusual, but it made me start looking.
And when she starts looking for more information, Jo finds that Meg and Jean raised £15,000 a couple of years earlier, also for treatment in America.
Meg is very poorly and needs your help to get to America for treatment.
Read the Facebook page. That time, Meg and Jean said they needed to go to America to see if doctors could try and make her better. Megan also said that after treatment, she wanted to go to Disney World.
And I'm thinking, right, you're asking for £15,000 to go to America and get better. Who asks then what we're going to take in Disney while we're there? Because you're appealing for money to get better because you need money. To say 15,000 to get better is very, very vague. Why not 20,000? What is it? How are you getting better?
I have to admit, knowing how expensive medical bills can be in America, £15,000 doesn't sound that excessive. And given that Megan dedicated her life to creating magical experiences for sick children, why not go to Disney and create some memories for herself? But for Jo, the idea that someone would ask the public for money when they could afford to go to Disney was at the very least questionable.
I was a bit suspicious, so I just wanted to... I suppose you're making sure that the money is going to the right place, and by doing that is by asking questions.
Why did that matter to you at that point?
I don't want people being ripped off, especially not in the cancer community.
The cancer community means a lot to Jo. Back in 2011, her 2-year-old son was diagnosed with cancer.
We got told that he had neuroblastoma and given very, very little hope, really. The oncologist
kind of explained that I'm not going to talk about survival rates because they're not very good. 2 weeks ago, you had a child that was healthy and mobile and speaking, and now you've got this child that needs all kinds of care because mentally and physically is very, very unwell.
Neuroblastoma is a rare and deadly cancer of the nervous system. When Jo went online, she found there was hope after all, but it was very expensive.
A specific treatment in America was showing 20% increase in survival, which was massive.
For that, Jo had to raise £250,000, far more money than she had.
I didn't know how I was going to get it, but I just knew that he was worth everything that we could possibly give him because it looked unlikely that he was going to survive it. So it was a case of, right, what do we do?
Fundraising days, marathons, news interviews. She dragged her son to events right after a round of chemotherapy because that would squeeze a few more pounds out of people. Jo was prepared to do anything.
What we would like to have done is spend every moment with our children in the privacy, but what we actually had to do was say, right, whatever it takes to raise this money, we have to know that we are giving him his best chance of survival.
It worked. Jo raised the money and her son had the treatment. And thankfully, that worked too. So when she first saw Meg's online fundraisers, she was concerned and also curious. She was interested to see how it compared to what she'd had to go through. When her son was first diagnosed with neuroblastoma, Jo had gone online and found support groups to help her get through the most difficult days. She became close to a small group of 3 other parents whose children also had neuroblastoma. They shared advice, they talked, they kept each other's spirits up. So when Jo first had doubts about Meg and Jean's story, this was the group she turned to. All of them had raised money online for their children's treatment. And they all privately thought there was something off about Meg's appeals. The strange language, the lack of detail, no hospital names or doctors. When they'd been fundraising for their kids' treatment, they shared these details with anyone who asked. After all, if people were donating money, didn't they deserve to know? One of the group is a man who asked us to keep his name out of this. He lost his son to neuroblastoma in 2013. We'll call him White Hat. White Hat is the name hackers give themselves when they use their skills for good. Our White Hat is a bit of a geek. He's measured, careful, serious.
So he said to me, be very, very careful if you put your head above the parapet and ask these questions and say anything publicly, and she is seriously ill, you will get shot. This is 2 people that look to most like they are doing an amazing amount of good for sick children. So he was nervous about me being vocal about my concerns, and I agreed.
They decided to watch and wait until one day in 2016, White Hat sends Jo a message. He says,
"Are you sat down, Joanna?"
Megan is seriously unwell in hospital in America. Jean is by her bedside and they're raising money for treatment online.
The tumour has caused severe immunodeficiency for Meg. She was admitted to hospital on July the 12th with sepsis and multiple infections. She now has 16 sources of infection. Her blood has literally become acidic with infection. Unfortunately, we recently heard the very worrying news that her liver has now been affected, which puts her in a very dangerous position. Her immune system is basically non-existent right now.
The fundraising page read,
After spending so many tens of thousands of pounds to keep Meg alive, they're now out of money to continue paying for this crucial care. This girl and her mum have done so much for so many families. despite Meg's health. Let's send her some magic for a change. Help spread the word.
I was like, right, no. This is never going to stop. This is going to be annually. Why is nobody else thinking that this is really, really odd?
Meg's Turn for Magic is the third fundraising drive for Meg in just 4 years.
We collectively said, we won't let it drop, we'll find out this time.
No matter the cost, this little group, we'll call them the Sleuths, decide to answer that one simple question. Does Megan have a brain tumour or not? Jo starts off small. She sends a message to the Meg's Turn for Magic Facebook page.
Hi, I'd love to send Megan something, just like she sends all the poorly children. Which hospitals do I send it to? To which I got a reply, thanks so much, but Megan's at 3 different hospitals at the moment, so it's very, very difficult.
She decides to go further and sets up the Sarah Smith Facebook account. This is when she sends a message to a Believe in Magic supporter.
Do you have any evidence that Megan is seriously ill?
Oh, Sarah.
They replied,
I don't even know what to say. I can't for 1 second believe they're not being truthful.
Undeterred, Jo looks up the charity itself and finds a phone number for one of the trustees, who she then calls pretending to be a journalist, looking to write a story and raise awareness about Meg's appeals.
And I said, hi, I've seen Megan's appeal and it sounds like, where are you ringing from? I'm a journalist, I want to do a story. I don't want to talk to any journalists. I said, but we want to publicise, we want, get the money, get that this is how, I'm not speaking to anybody, it's nothing to do with me. And put the phone down.
Just as Jo and her fellow sleuths are discussing what to do next, Jean posts an update from America. Megan's condition is deteriorating.
I wish we had better news to tell you, but it's been a very hard week. Meg's white blood cell count went through the roof. She's still completely neutropenic. The infections her body has been dealing with include MRSA, osteomyelitis MSSA, E. coli, lactic acidosis, multiple staph infections, and many others too. Meg is still on constant oxygen and fitting in more than 29 hours of IVs in every 24-hour period. We would both also like to say our hugest thanks to everyone who donated to the GoFundMe page. Right now, we desperately need to be able to focus on keeping Meg as safe and as stable as possible without panicking around the clock about every penny spent. Please get this page out to as many people as possible.
Asking questions is getting the sleuths nowhere. So White Hat has an idea. A completely different way to get to the truth. He decides to send an email to Meg's mother Jean, embedded with a small piece of computer code. If Jean opens the email, that code will reveal her location. White Hat hits send. Moments later, Jean opens the email. She's in Florida. Not in a hospital, but here. Disney's Animal Kingdom Villas, Kidani Village, part of Disney World, Orlando, Florida. What are you thinking at this point?
Busted. She's there. And she was saying that she was spending the night holding Megan's hand, willing her through the night. There's no way that anybody with a child who is that sick would be in a Disney resort. So I rang the Kidani there and then without really thinking it through. And they put me through to the room and Jean answered. So I said,
Hi, can I speak to Megan, please?
And she said, sorry? I said, is Megan there, please? She said, who's calling? She's asleep at the moment.
All right, I'll ring back, thank you.
And I put the phone down. So then I go back to the group and I said, Megan's there. Megan's in that room. I'm ringing back. So I rang back and Jean answered again. I said, is Megan awake yet, please? Pardon? I said, is Megan awake yet? Oh, Megan's not here. Megan's seriously unwell. Megan's in hospital. I said, oh, so you're not in Disney? And she said, no, I'm not in Disney. Megan's in hospital. Who is this? And then I put the phone down.
But you phoned Disney and she said she's not in Disney.
Yeah. So for me, right, we've got it now.
The sleuths have caught Meg and Jean at Disney World when they were telling their supporters they were in hospital. They reveal who they really are.
The cancer community thinks Megan is hooked up to IVs and barely making it through the night. The sleuths imagine her swimming at the hotel's spring pools, eating at the Disney-themed restaurants and watching giraffes lope past her hotel window. Just as they're about to tell the world what they've discovered, a video lands in Joe's inbox.
Joanna Ashcroft, it's Meg. Thought it was a good time to say hello.
It's Megan, staring right at Joe.
As you can see, we obviously have far more important things to be dealing with than the disgusting accusations that you've thrown at us at one of the worst ones of our whole lives.
She's hooked up to oxygen, and she shows Joe her PICC line, a catheter inserted into the vein so drugs can be pumped directly into her blood supply.
And I cannot for the life of me understand why you've done what you've done to us and broken our hearts. I have every hope in the world that you will see how wrong you've been and apologise. And I'm very sorry to say that if you don't, you'll be hearing from us very, very soon. You have completely devastated us and broken our hearts.
According to Meg and Jean, Meg's doctors are allowing her to stay at Disney, but she's receiving home hospital care, just as though she were actually in a hospital. The medics have turned her Kidani Villa room into a medical centre.
So all of these people that are supporting her and that are being told that she's in a Disney holiday village, despite you seeing these updates, and now you believe that she's got one-to-one care with nurses because of our special relationship with Disney. Like, even just saying it is comical. So that, and you still believe that, okay, right, well, we don't. So I'm ready. This is going on too long. Need our life back. It's gone too far to drop it now.
By this time, exposing Jean and Meg has become almost a full-time job for Jo. She contacts anyone she can think of to tell them what she's found out. Doctors, the charity commission, even the police.
I would get replies saying, Mrs. Ashcroft, we're well aware of your concerns. We're looking into them, we're looking into them, we're looking into them. I'd be like, hi, it's me again. Now I've seen this and now I've seen that.
Did you feel like they ever did anything?
They would sound like they were looking into it, but nothing actually ever came of it.
So did you lose faith in the sort of official channels almost?
Yeah, it just made me have to try harder to give them more proof and more proof.
Just as the sleuths are giving up hope of convincing people, an update from Jean gives them an idea.
These past few weeks have been so difficult. However, we do have, for the first time in over 20 weeks, a chance to possibly, hopefully, get back home. It really has been the most terrifying nightmare, but we so hope being home will be a big comfort.
For months, Meg and Jean have been writing how Megan is so ill that she'll need to be flown home in a low-altitude air ambulance. But the sleuths know that in the past, Meg and Jean have travelled across the Atlantic on the Queen Mary 2, a luxury ocean liner. As soon as they see Jean's update, the sleuths look up the Queen Mary 2 sailing times. Sure enough, the ship left New York the day before and is heading towards Southampton docks. But it's not enough to know they've sailed home. They need to see whether Megan looks as ill as she claimed. So they do something no one in the cancer community would ever expect. They decide to spend £1,000 to hire a private investigator and wait.
Believe in Magic is a BBC Studios podcast. It's presented by me, Jamie Bartlett. The series producer is Ruth Mayer. The producer is Lucy Greenwell. Music by Jeremy Wormsley. Sound design by Peregrine Andrews. The executive producer is Innes Bowen.
So just talk me through the morning we were monitoring the weather and making sure the boat was on time and stuff.
Yeah, and looking at the clock and going, oh my goodness, the light will coming in now, and I wonder if they suspect, and I wonder if they can see the guy stood there in a Mac and his camera, or if it was going to be oh, sorry, we missed them, or they didn't get off the boat, who knows?
At 350 metres long and nearly 150,000 tonnes, the Queen Mary 2 is the largest ocean liner ever built. A one-way Atlantic crossing costs somewhere between £1,200 and £3,500. For that, you get 15 restaurants and bars, 5 swimming pools, a casino, ballroom, theatre, planetarium, and even a hospital. As this floating city slowly approaches Southampton docks on Saturday, November the 19th, 2016, Joanna Ashcroft and the Sleuths are at home, nervously checking their phones. They're waiting for a message from the private detective, who's loitering just outside the arrivals terminal, scanning the passengers streaming off the ship, looking for Meg and Jean. If they are on board, how well will Megan look when she disembarks? In the weeks before they left America, Jean claimed she was at Megan's bedside as she fought multiple life-threatening infections. And just as they were about to travel home, Jean wrote how Megan was still on
constant intravenous antibiotics, as well as intravenous fluids, intravenous steroids, and many other IVs too, and constant oxygen.
Jean later described how they were carrying
5 suitcases of medication and medical equipment, as well as a huge oxygen concentrator.
If they're not on board, the Sleuths will be back to square one. They'll have nothing to show that Meg and Jean are lying about Meg's illness. And Joe will have just spent £1,000 on a private detective for nothing.
He didn't send me anything initially, and I was like, please.
0715, Intercruise Terminal. The arrivals area is located on the ground floor of the terminal. Information from the terminal staff is that all passengers must leave by one exit. Passengers are already leaving from the ship.
This is the private detective's report.
0935, Megan and Jean are observed exiting the arrivals area. They are talking and laughing with each other as they walk through. They are pushing luggage trolleys. Megan has 3 suitcases and a handbag on hers. Jean has 2 suitcases and a large carrier bag on hers.
And then these photographs started to come through.
Joe hands me several photos of Meg and Jean walking out of arrivals. Meg isn't in a medical gown. She's wearing a blue sweater and a beige scarf with red hearts. She looks a little pale, and she's put on a lot of weight. She's pushing 3 large suitcases on a trolley and smiling at Jean, who has 2 suitcases and is carrying a Disney backpack. There are no intravenous tubes, no oxygen tanks. They just look like a couple of happy tourists arriving home. I mean, she doesn't look well, but she doesn't look...
No. And there's no oxygen.
I asked Jo what she was expecting to see based on Jean's updates.
So she would be in a wheelchair that we'd had a photograph of, and she would be on oxygen because she was on 24/7 oxygen.
So that means she'd have a big cylinder somewhere in a Face mask
Yeah, and she'd be extremely weak.
0934, a porter service to assist with passenger luggage was available, and a lot of people with disabilities were making use of this facility. Megan and Jean did not use this facility.
And they walk straight past the people that are there to help you, you know, anybody with walking difficulties or all that kind of stuff. They didn't need any help, any assistance.
Megan and Jean exit the cruise terminal. They push trolleys to the left side of the terminal in the direction of the car parks. Megan was observed walking normally and unaided. She did not appear to show any discomfort. 0944, both Megan and Jean unload the suitcases into their vehicle. Megan appears to have no difficulty in doing this. Imagery taken.
Jean looks tanned. And, you know, she's been by her daughter's bedside.
Megan and Jean leave the dock and drive away from Southampton Port Cruise Terminal in a westerly direction.
For the sleuths, this is the proof they wanted that Meg and Jean have been lying. And what do I think? It might be possible to be critically ill one week and be capable of walking the next. But if Megan was as ill as they claimed, could she really have pushed that many suitcases unaided and lifted them into the car herself? And if she wasn't that ill, what were Meg and Jean actually doing at Disney World for over 4 months? I'm Jamie Bartlett. This is Believe in Magic, Episode 3, Proof. After Joe called the Disney Hotel and Jean picked up the phone, something extraordinary happened. Joe expected Jean would confess or apologise. After all, she'd been caught at Disney at the very moment she was telling the world she was at Megan's side in hospital. If she had confessed, things might have gone very differently. But Jean did the opposite and emailed Joe a 20-page dossier full of medical documents and receipts to prove that Megan did have a life-threatening brain tumour. Right, so I'm going through this 20-page dossier, and wow, there is a lot in here. Doctor's letters, receipts, prescriptions, test results. Jean is not backing down. She opens by saying, I'm going through all of your unthinkable and hugely mistaken
beliefs one by one and providing evidence for each and every one.
There are a lot of doctor's letters on headed paper. 14th of December 2015. Megan's being seen about an ear problem. 7th of June 2016. She's at a walking clinic saying her right arm hurts. 30th of June 2016, she's prescribed flucloxacillin. 4th of August 2016, she's having tests to measure lactic acid levels. She's in and out of medical settings constantly. That's also something we've been told by people who knew her. And there are a lot of prescriptions in here too. Again, official-looking letters. I don't know if I can actually say all of these, but penicillin, clindamycin,
Sofradex and Betnazol drops, piperacillin IV, ondansetron, promethazine, sodium chloride, dexamethasone, morphine.
I suppose it's possible to make some of this up. But people like Lucy Patagini saw Megan taking a lot of medication.
She was always taking tablets. I mean, her handbag was so heavy, none of us could ever carry it. And it was full of medicine, full of pills and, liquid medicine. She was always taking them.
There is also what looks like the record of a diagnosis of a type of tumour called an adenoma of pituitary. Although this isn't cancerous, it can be harmful. And as I later find out, it is something that Jean maintains to this day that Meg had been diagnosed with. The name of the medical facility where the diagnosis was made is blanked out, but it looks from the spellings as if it's in America.
Meg was misdiagnosed with just raised intracranial pressure before they realised it was actually high due to a tumour, and she didn't ever have idiopathic intracranial hypertension. She, as many children with brain tumours do, has a VP shunt after having an LP shunt that broke because the pressure was so high.
Inserting a shunt is a very serious operation. It involves drilling a hole in the skull so a tube can carry excess fluid into the abdomen. Based on what I've heard, I think Megan did have a shunt. Lots of people saw it, including her old friend, Natalie Garrett.
She really, really 100% did have a shunt in her brain.
Meg's immune system is so weak that she continues to develop new infections. The
second midline broke and a new 38cm PICC line was inserted completely awake without any sedation. Please see PICC information below. Her blood results constantly show that her body is fighting infections and that she's been both neutropenic, see blood results, with very high white blood cells.
A PICC line is an intravenous tube that carries drugs directly into the bloodstream. And in that video Meg sent the Sleuths to prove she was ill, I can clearly see that Megan does have a PICC line fitted.
I've had my hospital letters, my documents, my PICC line here into my heart.
And there are all these photographs too that Jean took of their hotel room. And looking at it, I mean, it looks like a hospital stock cupboard, to be honest. And Meg's got 3 full bags of syringes. I can see alcohol prep pads, which are used for cleaning cuts. There's maybe 20 or 25 oxygen cylinders, a wheelchair, intravenous tubes, and a box of what looks like portable intravenous drips.
If they were on holiday in Disney, what on earth were they doing with all of that?
That part just blows my mind because they know that they're not being honest about her illnesses. But by the looks of it, all the photographs that was sent to us as proof were all the medicines and oxygen tanks. And I think maybe she had kind of a cannula going into her arm. I believe that Megan was taking a lot of medicine.
It's hard to understand how someone could pretend to be sicker than they are to steal money. But what I find even harder to comprehend is why Meg would have all this treatment, see all these doctors and take all this medication if she didn't need to. Looking through the evidence Jean sent, I'm wondering whether Megan doesn't just love Disney. Maybe she also loves doctors. Maybe she was fundraising to go to America to have genuine medical treatment, some or all of which she didn't actually need. But why would anyone want to do that? I have a slightly strange relationship with doctors. I definitely class myself as a bit of a hypochondriac, one of those people who feels a slight pain, Googles it, and ends up in A&E 3 hours later. I once got told by a specialist to stop coming back. There was nothing actually wrong with me. I'd always heard there was another group of people, like us hypochondriacs, who also keep going back to the doctors again and again, except with one important difference. They know they aren't ill. They're faking it. So I get in touch with a woman called Cindy, hoping she might help me understand what Megan might be doing. For years, doctors thought Cindy was suffering from epileptic seizures and fainting episodes, until she admitted that she was making it all up.
I don't want to be sick because I hate being sick, but I want to be sick so that I get that legitimate attention. That desire to be sick is always there.
Cindy says she was always fascinated with being sick and hurting herself. She loved the show ER, of course, but there was something more.
I think it was just the idea of being a patient appealed to me. I remember wanting to go for Halloween in a wheelchair, and I just had that fascination and that desire to be in that role.
But the faking really started when Cindy was 15 and with her boyfriend. They had an argument one evening on his front lawn.
And I just pretended to faint. I just fell forward into the grass and I was nervous. And I remember him coming and sitting down beside me, and he was all worried about me and scared. And we got up and he rushed me to the hospital.
The following week, she pretended to faint again in maths class. The teacher tried to wake her up, but she didn't respond.
So he got me to the floor and they called an ambulance. They came. I was taken into the same hospital. And it just escalated from there.
Cindy started going to more extreme lengths to get back into hospital. She started faking epileptic seizures on the bus, in the street. What were you thinking? Were you worried about getting found out?
I wasn't so much worried about being found out as I was worried about being believed. I just felt like I needed to have somebody believe me that I was really sick, even though I wasn't.
She says she loved the attention, being believed by people in positions of authority and power, almost as if the world is somehow nicer when you're not well. It was hard work, says Cindy. Keeping up with your own lies can be exhausting. But how come the doctors believed her?
So I would go to the library, which had quite a bit of information, and I did research there, and that's how I figured out you cry out, you wet your pants, you poop your pants, things like that. And so I did all that. And, I know it's kind of gross, but it was, it made it more convincing. Also, quite often when I'd go to a doctor, they would say, did this happen? And so I'm like, okay, that was supposed to happen. And so I'd adapted a little bit. Yeah.
With careful planning, Cindy managed to fool doctors for years and underwent numerous hospital stays and tests. Did you ever, though, feel like you were sort of pushing it too far? Like you'd done stuff that was actually starting to make you genuinely sick as a result of your sort of feigning?
Yeah, I've had probably at least 20 concussions.
One time, Cindy swallowed tiger balm. Another, she tried to contaminate her own breathing machine. But she couldn't stop. She says it's like a drug. It's addictive. And you always want a bigger hit.
Having their attention did fill that loneliness, but that was why I kept craving so much more and more and more, because it was never enough. It's almost like having a beer when you're an alcoholic, right? And then it just kind of escalates.
Eventually, Cindy was diagnosed with a rare and mysterious disorder. It was first identified in 1951 by a brilliant endocrinologist from Central Middlesex Hospital called Richard Asher. Asher was fascinated by the relationship between mental and physical health. For years, he'd been in charge of the mental observation unit at Central Middlesex, where he saw thousands of patients. He noticed that a small but consistent number of them complained of various symptoms, but on closer inspection were perfectly healthy. Asher wrote up his findings in the renowned medical journal, The Lancet. Here is described a common syndrome which most doctors have seen, but about which little has been written. Like the famous Baron von Munchausen, the persons affected have always travelled widely, and their stories, like those attributed to him, are both dramatic and untruthful. Accordingly, the syndrome is respectfully dedicated to the Baron and named after him. He called it Munchausen syndrome. Munchausen syndrome is not the same as hypochondria, explained Asher. Hypochondriacs exaggerate and panic, but they really do think they're ill. Munchausen patients know they aren't, but they come anyway, for the attention, for the gratification, to fulfill some deep need to be believed. The sleuths don't know what's driving Meg's behaviour, if it's Munchausen or some kind of simple fraud. They may not know the whole truth, but they're utterly convinced that Meg and Jean are lying. People are still donating to believe in magic. Many of them are bereaved or caring for sick children. So the sleuths make a big decision. It's time to tell everyone what they've discovered, to lay it all out on the line.
The Truth About Meg and Jean Facebook page, December 2016.
The page is an honest attempt to establish the truth about Meg and Jean and their summer of 2016 spent in America. Meg's Turn for Magic was set up to raise money for them because Meg was supposedly receiving critical medical care in America. There are many who have concerns about the veracity of their story and its dramatic and incredible nature. Having been blocked and deleted from Meg's Turn for Magic, this is an open page where everything that is known can be seen and read, and people can make their own minds up.
They post all the evidence they've carefully gathered over the previous few months. Their messages and email exchanges with Meg and Jean. Screenshots of past fundraisers. The seemingly exaggerated and contradictory posts. A transcript of the conversation when Joe called the Disney hotel. The fact Meg and Jean walked off the boat looking fine. In short, the story we've just told you. But once again, Jean doesn't confess. She doesn't apologise. Instead, she decides to tell the world what the sleuths have put her and Megan through.
What you may not know is that for several months we've been stalked, threatened and blackmailed by a tiny group of people who have made our lives hell. All their communication has been recorded and any further criminal activity will be added to this. However, we are so truly grateful to have had hundreds and hundreds of messages showing your love and support. It means more at this time than you could ever know. Love, Jean and Meg.
The child cancer community is ripped in two, and most people believe Meg and Jean.
I'm disgusted with what's happening.
Some scumbags just being arseholes. I would trust these ladies with my kids' lives, let alone a flipping child.
You lot are either mentally ill and need medical support yourselves, or you're just generally evil people.
I truly hope you can live with yourself when you're proven to be the spiteful and poisonous bitch you are.
Karma is a bitch. Remember that.
Okay. So yeah, they couldn't do any wrong.
Many of these families had children who were living with cancer. Some had lost children to the disease. Meg and Jean had offered support and comfort to countless families at their lowest moments. Those families couldn't comprehend how the two people who'd given them so much and who'd seen up close what it's like to live with cancer could have lied about it all. The sleuths are worried that no one will ever believe them. They tried going undercover. They tried going public on Facebook. Nothing seemed to work. But armed with their new evidence, they try again to get the authorities involved. Jo travels to London to present the Charity Commission with her information about Meg, Jean and Believe in Magic. She sends the police her research too, including the report from the private detective who snapped Meg and Jean walking off the Queen Mary 2 ocean liner. It takes a while, but in February 2017, the Charity Commission finally opens an inquiry into Believe in Magic and hauls Jean in for questioning. There are also rumours that the police are investigating. The parties stop. The donations slow to a trickle. The once omnipresent fairy godmothers disappear from public view. In the face of the relentless effort of these amateur sleuths, things are finally falling apart for Meg and Jean. How are you feeling towards the end of 2017?
We are happy that we've put a stop to it, and there's it was upsetting that there was so many issues within our community, that there was so much name calling and anger towards us, but there was nothing else that we could do at that point. They were back from Florida. We'd given the police our proof and we'd spoken out, and that's all we could do. So we went back to our normal lives.
The fraud had been damped down, but were you worried about Megan?
It had to get to a point where there's nothing more I can do. As long as she's not taking vulnerable families' money or there's no ongoing scams, then who knows where Megan is and what she's doing now is how I felt at that time.
Amongst all the uncertainty about what Meg and Jean were doing in America, we do know one thing. They were at Disney. Because we've recently been shown receipts from Meg and Jean's Disney stay. On the 12th of July 2016, the day Jean said Meg was admitted to hospital with sepsis and multiple infections, Jean paid $618 for a 3-bedroom grand villa with Savannah views and another $59 eating at the Flavours of Africa restaurant. Later that week, they spent $180 eating at the Cinderella Royal Table in the Magic Kingdom Park. On the 29th of August 2016, the day the fundraising appeal Meg's Turn for Magic was launched, they spent $380 on a villa and room service. Between July and November 2016, as Jean updated supporters about Meg's desperate condition and pleaded for money, the pair spent a staggering $72,500 living at a luxury Disney resort. By the spring of 2018, the Sleuths are confident that it will only be a matter of time before the authorities expose Meg and Jean for charity fraud and faking a brain tumour. Until early one morning when Jo is at home and her phone buzzes.
So I wake up and I get a text that says, "Evil bitch, are you happy now? Wait for the police."
What?
I was like, what? So I go straight to the messenger group and Lisa says, "Megan's dad. Megan's dad."
Believe in Magic is a BBC Studios podcast. It's presented by me, Jamie Bartlett. The series producer is Ruth Mayer. The producer is Lucy Greenwell. Music by Jeremy Wormsley. Sound design by Peregrine Andrews. The executive producer is Innes Bowen.
Megan's dad. And I was like, wow, what? Like the shock. Because as far as I was concerned, Megan didn't have a serious illness.
Jean had posted the news on Facebook.
On the 28th of March 2018, my whole world changed. At 11:53, Megan's heart stopped beating and I knew she was on her way to heaven. We prayed and we prayed, but nothing could help my baby girl, and I held her hands as she died. Inside, I too was dying. All I kept saying is, "Darling, if you want to go, please go and be happy."
The Sleuths wanted justice, but not like this.
There was a lot of questions that day and a lot of sadness that it wasn't supposed to end like this. We did a group call and just discussed it, but we were all completely baffled and shocked and throwing different, maybe it was this, maybe it was that, maybe she isn't.
Did the group come to some conclusion about what you thought it might have been?
No. We had absolutely no idea what happened.
I'm Jamie Bartlett. This is Believe in Magic, Episode 4, The Doctors.
We used to say to her, "You'll be late for your own bloody funeral." And there we all were on our way to her funeral, and her funeral was stopped.
Do you mean you were literally on the way?
Oh, yeah, in the car.
In April 2018, Believe in Magic supporter and Jean and Meg's friend, Lucy Pettigini, was driving to Meg's funeral just outside London. Dozens of other families and supporters from all over the country were en route. Lucy was just a few miles away when she heard the news that the funeral had been halted.
We were messaging people that we knew were on their way to say, obviously, you need to turn around. It's not happening.
Were you told what had happened to make it stop?
I don't know if Jean had intervened or someone may have said the police were involved. I don't know.
I can't imagine what it must have been like for Megan's friends and family to have to turn around and go home that day, having no idea what was happening. I've never heard of a funeral being cancelled at such late notice. Whatever the reason, Jean must have had no choice. For the families who support Meg and Jean, her funeral being stopped was more evidence of how the sleuths ruined Meg's life. Their online campaign prevented a poorly young woman from raising money for life-saving treatment and led to her charity being investigated. And now, a shadow has been cast over her funeral.
Did you hear that Megan died? She had such an awful year before she passed away.
She was hounded to death, sadly. In the last year, we have seen the best of humanity tortured and defiled by the worst of humanity.
Just hope those bastards are satisfied now. They need putting down.
Eventually, there's a second funeral. This one went ahead. Meg and Jean had attended lots of funerals over the previous 5 years, nearly all children they'd helped. Now, it was Jean's turn to mourn. Lucy Pettigini, whose daughter died of a brain tumour, was there.
How was it?
It was sad. It was really sad. It was really sad. It was kind of like the end of the... Although obviously there'd been all this trouble, kind of was the real end of all the magic for these children. I think that's the really sad thing. I'm talking about the poorly children that absolutely adored Meg, that were still obviously going through treatments, and it was hard for them because she was like a fairy godmother to these children. That's how she was. That's how these children, very ill children, saw her. It was really sad. Really sad. And as I say, I haven't heard from Jean since. I did message her a couple of times just to see how she was, and she never replied.
The sleuths have no idea how Megan died, but they are confident that whatever she died of, it wasn't a brain tumour. Despite everything I've seen, the photos of Meg and Jean getting off the Queen Mary 2, the receipts from Disney, Meg's death makes me wonder, what if the sleuths got it all wrong? I've seen this with online detectives before. They come up with a theory and then go online to find evidence that backs it up. We all do it. I've done it before too. When I first came across this story, I wondered how we'd ever actually get to the truth. Because apart from Jean, the only people who really know whether Megan had a brain tumour are her doctors. Patient-doctor confidentiality is so strict, even after a patient dies, I knew they'd never speak to us. But there is one circumstance when they're allowed to talk. In fact, they have to talk. If someone dies in unusual circumstances, a coroner, which is a kind of judge, opens legal proceedings to determine how that person passed away. Every day in the UK, over 100 coroners' conclusions are made, each one its own story, a detailed examination into a person's final moments. They usually involve testimony under oath from doctors that were involved in a deceased person's care. And we discover that on the 16th of November 2018, nearly 8 months after Megan Bhari died, Mary Hassel, the coroner for Inner North London, held an inquest into her death. Surely that will reveal what happened to Meg. The only problem is that getting hold of inquest recordings is almost impossible. The producer, Ruth, has been trying to work out if we can get access.
Now, the issue with these hearings is that if you know they're about to happen and you want to go, anyone can go, including journalists, and you can take notes and listen. You can't make a recording, and the only people who are granted recordings afterwards are what's called interested parties, and that might include a family member, but it doesn't necessarily include journalists.
We apply for permission to hear a recording of the inquest, but it was more in hope than expectation. And then one morning, I'm working with Ruth, and we get some news.
So I've just got an email from the coroner's court in St Pancras in London.
Thank you for your email, dated 8th of February. You've requested a recording of the inquest touching the death of Megan Bhari that was held on the 16th of November 2018. Inquests are public hearings, and journalists, like other members of the public, are very welcome to attend any inquest in inner North London. But we've missed it. These days, inquests are recorded and rarely transcribed, so there is a recording. It can be disclosed to interested persons, but unfortunately, the definition of interested persons does not include journalists, so I'm afraid you're not entitled to the recording or documents. We don't have access to Megan's medical records, so without the coroner's inquest, we might never fully understand how Meg died. But check this out. However, given the nature of this inquest and your request, in these very exceptional circumstances, Coroner Hassel is prepared to allow you to listen to a recording of the inquest. I can facilitate this for you at St Pancras Coroner's Court. This is amazing. And look, I shall play the recording once through, and I shall sit in court with you during that time. Just one time, we've got one chance to listen. You will not be allowed to make any sort of recording, but you are very welcome to take notes. I mean, amazing. So we've basically got to make as many notes as we possibly can.
You need to learn shorthand.
What a strange thing as well, like that you have to go into a court and listen to a recording, but you can't have a recording yourself. It's such a strange rule, isn't it?
I wonder what they mean when they say, given the nature of this inquest.
Yeah, well, let's phone her before she changes her mind. Have you ever been to a coroner's court before?
I've never been to coroner's court, have you?
No. One rainy day in March 2022, Ruth and I head to St Pancras Coroner's Court. It's an old municipal building. You've seen the kind before. The red bricks, window frames in need of repair, the busy notice board. It's tucked away, almost embarrassed by the shiny new developments that surround it. Google's brand new 1 million square foot mega campus, a shrine to our modern love affair with tech, is being built just around the corner. As the court clerk sets up the sound system for us, we wait nervously outside, hoping we'll get the answers we've been looking for.
If she didn't have a brain tumour, I'm hoping that it will give us clues as to what we should be asking next.
Let's see where we can... Oh, it's hot in here. Boiling.
So can I just record my voice saying what she said? So the lady who is going to play us the recording has just told us that in the 10 years she's worked here, she's never heard of anyone being allowed to hear a recording of an inquest after it's happened. Normally they would just tell us what the findings of the inquest were.
We're led into a large wood-panelled room with red leather seats. Something like a cross between a court and an old pub. There's me, the producer Ruth, and Claire.
Hello, Jamie. Nice to meet you. And you.
Claire is our secret weapon here. We aren't allowed to record what we're about to hear, so we ask Claire to come. She's a stenographer, someone who, using a small machine called a steno that looks a bit like a typewriter but without letters, can take notes so fast and so accurately that it's as good as having a tape recorder. For over 2 hours we sit and listen to the intimate details of a case we know so much about, and yet so little. Finally, it feels like we're in the consultation room with Meg and Jean and their doctors. And what I heard, it wasn't what I expected. Oh, it's just awful. It was really not nice listening to that, was it? It felt quite intrusive. It was really sombre. It was also the account of her death, the actual death, that was so grim. It was such a long and drawn out affair that the anaesthetists and the surgeons and stuff basically had to give up with exhaustion after 2.5 hours. You stop thinking about all the investigation and you're just thinking, what is this girl going through? It's easy to get carried away with interesting concepts and big ideas and, sleuthing and different conditions, but when you hear the details of someone's death, it becomes very real. I understand now a bit better why they don't just hand out recordings of these things. But look, here are some of the things that I think we just learned.
First, Megan died at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery. It specialises in treating brain conditions, but she wasn't there because of a brain tumour. She was there being investigated for idiopathic intracranial hypertension, the condition she claimed to have before the brain tumour. Remember, the one she used to post about on an IIH forum before Believe in Magic started. Because we couldn't record the inquest, actors are reading out the words of the doctors and Coroner Mary Hassel, who speaks first.
I now call to give evidence Lewis Thorne. Can you please give me your full name, your professional role, and your professional address?
My name is Lewis Ward Thorne. I'm a consultant neurosurgeon and I work at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery at Queen Square in London.
Lewis Thorne saw Megan the morning she died, but he'd first met her 5 years earlier, soon after she'd had her brain shunt fitted. So Megan was being investigated and treated for idiopathic intracranial hypertension, raised brain pressure, a condition which has many of the symptoms of a brain tumour, but without the tumour. When Lewis Thorne first saw her, Megan was reporting painful headaches whenever she lay down. He carried out some tests to find out whether raised brain pressure could be responsible, but he couldn't find anything. Her shunt, which drained fluid from the brain to the abdomen through a hole in the skull, seemed to be working normally. And when Megan arrived at the National Hospital for Neurology and Neurosurgery just 4 days before she died, doctors were again concerned her brain shunt wasn't working properly, that pressure could be building up in her brain and pressing on her optic nerve. Lewis Thorne wanted to test Megan's brain pressure by inserting a needle into her spine to draw off some cerebral spinal fluid under general anaesthetic. He told her she was at risk of losing her sight. One day Megan would say yes, the next day she'd withdraw her consent, saying she was too nervous to have the procedure. This went on for some days, and in the end she never had the test, because unexpectedly, in the evening of the 28th of March 2018, Megan went into cardiac arrest. She was rushed to the operating room, where for over 2 hours doctors battled to save her life. When it was clear there was nothing more they could do, Jean was rushed in to see Megan one final time, and Megan was pronounced dead just before midnight. Reliving the harrowing resuscitation efforts, the consultant anaesthetist who tried to revive her sounds distraught.
My team and myself gave it absolutely everything we could, and I'm so sorry that we weren't able to get Megan back.
Different medical professionals involved in her care give evidence as the inquest tries to determine how it got to that point. Dr. Siobhan Burns, an immune system specialist, was involved in Megan's care from September 2013 until April 2017.
I assessed her for immunodeficiency and concluded that she had no significant immune deficiency.
Yet when Megan went to America in 2016, she claimed she was seriously ill in hospital with sepsis because of immunodeficiency, caused in part by her tumour. Megan would go to Dr. Burns reporting symptoms, mostly recurrent sore throats. When Dr. Burns tested her, she never found any proof of infection. But Dr. Burns was worried about something else.
I had significant concerns about her opiate-seeking behaviour, the validity of her medical history, and the nature of her engagement with medical services. My concerns were shared by other professionals, with whom I had many multidisciplinary team discussions, which finally resulted in a referral to her local mental health team.
We saw a prescription for morphine in the evidence documents sent to the Sleuths. I assumed that was about pain relief, but this seems to suggest possible addiction. Dr. Siobhan Burns even brought up these concerns with Lewis Thorne, the specialist in brain pressure, and it turns out he was worried about it too.
I was concerned that she was vulnerable and that she was taking a higher dose of opiates than was required, and I wondered whether that was part of the reason that she was unwell.
Lewis Thorne got together the many doctors involved in her care to find out who was responsible for the morphine prescription, but they couldn't figure it out. At the inquest, another consultant, Megan's endocrinologist, offers a clue.
In November 2017, I was contacted by Harrods Pharmacy. I was told that there had been an attempt to obtain Oromorph with my name on the prescription. I was later sent a copy of the prescription, and the signature was clearly a poor forgery. I was later contacted by the police in this regard.
So a forged prescription for liquid morphine. There are more revelations, like the fact that Megan had a breast reduction aged just 17, the sheer number of doctors Megan was seeing, but also the number of appointments she missed. Lewis Thorne also picked up on this.
It is concerning the number of doctors that were involved in her care. Opinions taken from abroad that we did not have any documentation of made it very difficult to look after her.
Lewis Thorne tried to arrange to see Megan as part of a large group, to make sure all her doctors were getting the same information and work out what was going on. But Megan stopped turning up to his clinics. When the forensic pathologist Alan Bates conducted his post-mortem, he found something shocking. He found nothing.
The brain itself, apart from the shunt, appeared morphologically normal. It had a normal weight, and there were no signs of either cerebral edema or raised intracranial pressure.
Her brain appeared normal. No swelling, no high pressure, and no brain tumour mentioned anywhere. So what did kill Megan?
Histologically, I didn't find any significant changes except in the liver, where I saw very severe fatty change, replacement of the normal tissue of the liver by fat. So in conclusion, the only pathological change of note was fatty liver disease. And I offered probable cause of death as 1A acute cardiac arrhythmia, an abnormality of the rhythm of the heart, due to 1B, fatty liver disease. I think in this case, it's most likely related to the deceased having had a high body mass index.
There was a second post-mortem too, and I wonder if this was why Megan's funeral was abruptly cancelled. That one found the same as the first. As the inquest draws to a close, Coroner Hassel hands down her determination.
I make the determination that death rose from natural causes, and I confirm this by signing the record of inquest this 16th day of November 2018.
Coroner's inquests don't always cover everything, but neither the pathologists, Megan's neurosurgeon, endocrinologist or GP mention a brain tumour. As we walk out of the court, we now have other, even bigger questions. no sign of serious infections, no sign of sort of other abnormalities with any other of her, with her organs, no sign of immunodeficiency, which was another thing that was claimed. I still am left wondering what really killed her. Like, I know what didn't kill her. It wasn't a brain tumour. It wasn't intracranial hypertension. I know that what she died of, technically, in the ICU, but I don't know how it came to be still that a 23-year-old has such serious fatty liver disease that it results in them dying. That is suddenly a kind of a new mystery, really.
Don't want to say 1 in a million because it sounds a bit cliched, but you're getting close to those odds. It's extremely rare.
Professor Gavin Sandercock from the University of Essex is a sports scientist. He spent years studying the causes of fatty liver disease. On a purely medical level, cardiac arrhythmia caused by fatty liver disease in a 23-year-old is a natural cause of death. But it's so unusual for someone so young to die in this way that it doesn't feel like the end of the story.
Never even experienced it. I've only heard of it, so it's very rare in my experience.
Wow, okay. Professor Sandercock explains that fatty liver disease so severe that it could be linked to death is typically caused by living extremely unhealthily for years and years.
It's a chronic disease, and it's from chronic exposure to risk factors like obesity, like high blood glucose from diabetes and high cholesterol. So if you think of it as a sort of, a gradual injury to the liver, it's like the liver's being punched. It's being punched by glucose, being punched by cholesterol.
But unlike a brain tumour, it's a preventable condition, and in the early stages, treatable through lifestyle change, especially at a young age. It's Professor Sandercock's hunch that doctors would have tried repeatedly to encourage Megan to change her lifestyle.
This advice will have been received time and time again, not just by the individual, but also by their parent.
She dies at 23.
I mean, dying at 23 is rare. Dying at 23 of something chronic is even rarer.
We learnt a lot at the inquest, but there's still so many things I don't understand. Why wasn't the fatty liver disease dealt with sooner? Why did Megan refuse Lewis Thorne's procedure if she was at risk of going blind? How serious was her opiate-seeking behaviour? As I read back through the coroner's inquest, I realise it wasn't just about Megan. It was also about her mother, Jean. Jean was the constant presence in Megan's life. She was always there for every hospital visit or GP trip. She was at the inquest too, of course. She asked a lot of questions, which is completely understandable, but at times she seemed to contradict and argue with the doctors. To find out why Megan ended up dying at just 23, I need to go back into her past and understand more about her life away from the Believe in Magic spotlight. Jean is the person who can answer these questions, but she hasn't answered any of our emails. In fact, we're still trying to work out where she is. But there are other people besides Jean who might know. Although she was brought up alone, Megan wasn't an only child. She had 4 older siblings. We tried to contact Megan's 2 sisters right at the start of this project. We'd been told they were very private people, and for a whole year we waited for an answer. We'd almost given up, until one day the sisters finally agreed to talk.
I don't think people realise how dangerous she is, how manipulative she is, how much of an effect she's had on people, and how entitled she is.
For the first time, they've decided to go public with their side of the story.
It's like that godlike complex, isn't it? She can do what she likes and get away with it.
Believe in Magic is a BBC Studios podcast. It's presented by me, Jamie Bartlett. The series producer is Ruth Mayer. The producer is Lucy Greenwell. Music by Jeremy Wormsley. Sound design by Peregrine Andrews. The executive producer is Innes Bowen.
In our kitchen, we had an oak table, like a farmhouse table, and we had above it some cupboards. 4 of us would sit around the table, and every time we'd sit down for dinner, we'd play this game because there would always be a tin that would roll off the top of the cupboard and nearly hit us on the head.
I'm sitting with one of Megan's older sisters, another of Jean's daughters. We're going to call her Kate. She's talking about the regular family dinners with her 2 older brothers and older sister way before Megan was born. Jean would be busy rustling up fish fingers or turkey drumsticks, all very normal, except with an added element of danger.
So we'd always know the sound of it rolling. So we'd always be like, we'd hear it and we'd be like, oh, like that. We'd like pretend to be like ninjas and like got it each time.
Kate ducks to the side and shoots out a hand, catching the now imaginary tin falling from above.
And the table was like battered from where all the tins fell off.
Well, I suppose what's strange is that you think that's not, or you did think that was normal.
Yeah, I never questioned why the tins fell off.
As she grew older, the memory stuck in Kate's head. And with time came the slow realisation that those dinner times were far from ordinary.
If a tin had ever fallen off something and nearly hit one of my kids, I would rearrange my whole kitchen. And then I started thinking, why did she put the tins on top of the cupboard rather than inside the cupboards? The cupboards weren't full. And then also, why were they always falling at the times that we sat down for dinner? Do you know what? So things like that you're starting to work out. And it was almost like, now you go, oh, of course, because she wanted an accident. Jean wanted one of us to have an accident. And for us, that doesn't seem unusual or far-fetched. That explains what she was like.
Why do you think she wanted to have an accident?
Because she would have liked the excitement, the whole thrill of it, the attention.
I'm Jamie Bartlett. This is Believe in Magic, Episode 5, The Sisters. Kate is in her late 30s. She's friendly and talks fluently and easily. There's a hint of relief somewhere in her voice, as if a weight has been lifted since she decided to tell her story. She has been going through her old emails and messages from Jean and her older sister, trying to make sense of it all. When the producer Ruth first contacted Kate over a year ago, she was hesitant. She was happy to help, but nervous about going on record. She'd broken off contact with her mum about 8 years ago and no longer wanted to be associated with her. But over time, she realised she needed to speak out. So she agreed to talk, but only if we change her name. I'm also anxious about talking to Kate. There's a lot we still don't know, and most of it revolves around the relationship between Meg and Jean. We learnt at the inquest that she died of acute cardiac arrhythmia caused by fatty liver disease, but doctors were worried about the validity of Meg's medical history, possible morphine dependency, and the sheer number of medical professionals she was seeing. Kate could be our best chance to delve into Megan's past and understand what and who is behind all this.
So I was 12 when Meg was born, which was like perfect age, you know, because you just love babies at that point, and I just adored her and loved her.
By the time Megan was born in 1995, Jean already had 4 children, all from a previous marriage. But the relationship collapsed when Jean fell in love with her neighbour, a much younger man called Pinder. The pair moved in together and Jean fell pregnant with Megan. Because her siblings were much older, by the time Megan was 3, all her brothers and sisters had left home. And then, when Megan was still young, Jean and Pinder separated. Meg's world started to shrink. Meg had been going to a small private school in West Sussex, but it closed down in 2008 when Meg was 13.
Where did she go to school after that?
She didn't.
She never went back to school after 13 or whatever the age?
No. But that's another way of just isolating her. I think Jean deliberately played a part in pushing Meg away from everyone, and I think she particularly isolated her now in hindsight. Now looking back, the way she infantised her, kind of like the Peter Pan effect, like from her having that breast reduction at 17, which we only found out at the autopsy that she had that. And I think it was all things to try and keep her young.
Meg and Jean were unusually close. In some ways, they were more like best friends than mother and daughter. They were always together. Kate suspects they had access to each other's Facebook accounts and even slept in the same room. But the thing Kate remembers the most is Meg and Jean's strange relationship with illness and disease. The game with the tins on the cupboard wasn't a one-off. Illness and injury were a constant presence in Megan's life.
I remember going to visit her once, and I was talking to Jean on the sofa, like I was here, she was there, and Megan walks into the room and then pretends to faint. I ignore it and carry on talking because it was so like this is from The Girl Who Can't Lie Down, and she kind of collapsed dramatically on the sofa, and I see kind of Jean go like that.
Kate mimics Jean, looking very deliberately at Megan and back to Kate to see if she was going to react.
And I'm just carrying on talking as though nothing has happened, and she just carries on talking, and then Meg just gets up and kind of shuffles out.
Not reacting helped Kate deal with countless bizarre moments, like the time Jean told Kate that Megan had broken her arm. Kate decided to drive over quickly, unannounced, just to check for herself.
Meg opens the door, holding a dog in one hand, opening the door with the other. And I was like, oh, is Mum there, kind of thing? And oh no, all right, bye. She's just told us she'd broken her arm, and it's like, nope, she hasn't.
Rather than being out with her friends like most teenagers, Megan always seemed unwell. Kate often talked to her older sister Rachel about Meg's ill health, how Meg and Jean appeared to enjoy the drama and attention that came with it. They started to see a strange pattern. If someone they knew was unwell or sick, sooner or later they'd hear that Megan had the same.
We could predict what would happen next, what was wrong with her next. So my brother had done something with his knee, so he was on crutches. So then Meg was on crutches. When my sister's little girl was born, she was premature and she came out and she was on oxygen tanks. So then all of a sudden in America...
Jean, Facebook message to followers.
Meg is still on constant oxygen.
Megan had oxygen tanks.
As some of you know, Meg was admitted to hospital with sepsis and multiple infections.
So my older sister was in hospital with sepsis. She was in hospital for weeks, actually. Probably got emails going back years from me and my sister going, oh, I'm going to predict this is going to happen next. And then we'd put little bets on it and we'd be like, yes, we got it right.
Kate explains that for her and her sister, humour was a coping mechanism after years of feeling lied to and manipulated. It's an unsettling interview. And if what Kate says is true, Meg's brain tumour isn't just one unexplained illness, but a pattern of behaviour stretching back for years. I have the feeling Kate only realises how strange it all sounds as she's saying it aloud. Every now and again she'll stop and say,
we thought everything was normal.
So when Meg and Jean start believing magic in 2011, it's just another thing in a long line of strange occurrences. But the sisters are surprised by how big it gets, how long it lasts.
When you were reading online about her conditions got much worse, brain tumour is inoperable, tentacles are coming out. What were you thinking?
We knew it was ridiculous. Like, how are people believing this?
After we spoke to Kate, her older sister Rachel also agreed to talk to us, again, as long as we changed her name. She was hoping we could fill in some blanks for her.
I just want to know all the facts because it's been so mad.
Rachel was able to fill in an important blank for us, too. We heard at the inquest that in 2010, Meg was diagnosed with an enlarged pituitary gland, the kind that can often be observed in puberty. It's not the same as a brain tumour, but we wondered if this could have been the origin of the brain tumour story. Rachel remembers the diagnosis.
We were always told it's an enlarged pituitary gland.
But to other people, Meg and Jean started calling it a brain tumour. Rachel tried in vain to get them to stop.
I'd say to them, you can't say she has a brain tumour because people are going to assume it's cancer. They were like, yeah, but strictly speaking, it is a tumour because it's something that's enlarged. A tumour from the dictionary means this, therefore. I was like, no, you can't say that because people will think it's cancer. She's like, well, that's on them. That is what it is. And I just keep saying, but you can't say that because of what people will assume.
Rachel wanted her mum to show her something, anything, that would prove that Megan was seriously ill.
I always said to her that, please just give me one bit of proof. All I want is one bit of evidence from you. It was never, ever, ever provided for me, and I would beg for it. But literally I would beg. I'd get down on my hands and knees if you could just show me some evidence. I really want to believe you. I don't. I just need you to do this for me so I can understand. Nothing. Every single time, nothing.
In 2013, Meg and Jean were in America. They had just raised £15,000 so Megan could go to Boston Children's Hospital. Megan was about to turn 18 and was hoping to spend her birthday at Disney World with her mum after supposedly having treatment. Jean had asked Kate to look after her house and post while they were away. One day, Kate accidentally saw a letter, which turned out to be from a doctor at Boston Children's Hospital. The letter listed a few relatively minor conditions and stated that Megan did not have evidence for a pituitary gland abnormality. For the sisters, that letter was the final straw. They never believed a word Jean said about Megan's medical conditions after that. But it didn't mean they weren't worried, because Megan did seem incredibly unhealthy in other ways.
She'd always have a big bag, like a huge bag of pick and mix sweets on her. I was at their place once in Kingston, and Megan had just come back from Harrods, where she'd bought something ridiculous, like 30 hairbands that were £30 each, and just said to Jean, oh, can you go and get me a Five Guys? So she came back with this Five Guys burger and milkshake and fries and things. Megan had a couple of bites of it and was like, oh, actually, no, I don't want that. I just ate a whole cheesecake that I bought in Harrods in the taxi on the way home. Jean would always say she never eats. Megan doesn't eat a thing. But yet she was giving her all this food. She was buying it for her. It was just very high sugar, high fat, no exercise, to the extreme.
For years, the sisters talked about this story as though they were on the outside looking in. But as time passed, they started to wonder whether they were more caught up in it than they first thought. When Rachel was 9, she was affected by a rare rash that caused her to have kidney problems. A few years down the line, things got so bad, doctors started talking about a transplant. Her mum was a match, and Jean did what any parent would do and offered to donate a kidney. But Rachel didn't want to be in Jean's debt.
I refused it. I said, I'm not taking it. So I chose to go on to dialysis.
Dialysis is gruelling. It involves hours and hours of procedures each week. Rachel ended up very sick.
So the hospital said to me, if you don't take this kidney, you will die. So I took a kidney.
The transplant was successful. Rachel got on with her life. but lately she's been reflecting on vivid memories of Jean giving her cups of Bovril as a child.
Just being given all these cups of Bovril and then begging for Bovril. I just wanted more and more Bovril. And I'd be given just cups of Bovril. I couldn't tell you if it was every day, if it was several a day. I don't really remember. I just remember drinking a lot of Bovril. Like, I wouldn't dream of giving that to my child.
For any non-British listeners, Bovril is a meaty, yeasty paste that can be turned into a drink by adding hot water. Yes, we actually drink that here. It has a high salt content, which is the one thing you want to avoid with kidney problems.
You would know as an adult that giving cups of very salty drinks to a child who's got kidney problems is bad. There was 4 of us, all within a couple of years of each other. They didn't get Bovril, only I got Bovril. So was it a deliberate thing?
I ask if Rachel has ever checked her medical records to find out what happened. They used to be a thick wad, she says, but one day they disappeared from the hospital and were never seen again. We'll probably never find out exactly why her kidneys failed. But the effect of that kidney failure will have lifelong consequences.
You know, sounds dramatic, but it will have kind of shortened my life eventually, because you can only have like 3 transplants.
Rachel is only in her early 40s and she's already had 2. She even suspects that the transplants are the reason her daughter was born premature. Kate also remembers some worrying behaviour when Megan was undergoing some medical tests.
She'd be having heart monitors at the doctor's and their GP. So Jean would give her like big things of Coke, full fat Coke, to like drink, to get a load of caffeine in here before she'd have the heart monitors. I witnessed those and that happening and her saying what she was doing.
Just giving her loads of caffeine and sugar so her heart rate goes up.
Yeah, for the heart monitor when they were tracking that. And
how much Coke was she doing?
Like the big litre bottles, and so her diet, it was just milkshakes and Coke.
Kate remembers morphine too.
It got to the point where she must have been taking morphine every day. She'd have it measured out in the Calpol syringe and then someone else would have to administer it to her so that Jean would give it to her. I remember being in her kitchen and they were in another room and they were trying to make a plan to get the morphine. And so she would say, we'll go up to this hospital and we'll just go to the A&E and I'll just say, I'm visiting my brother in London and that you've become really sick and we'll go to the A&E there.
I think back to the coroner's inquest where we heard about the forged liquid morphine prescription. I think it was putting all this together that made the sisters decide to speak out. Because if this really is a pattern of behaviour, it could happen again.
She can't do anything to anyone else and she has to be stopped. And I don't think people realise how dangerous she is, how manipulative she is, how much of an effect she's had on people and how entitled she is. Like, it's like that godlike complex, isn't it? She can do what she likes and get away with it.
On the train home after speaking with Kate, Ruth and I are in a bit of a daze. It's just one perspective, but we both sense that the story has shifted.
Yeah, that really... Things started to make a bit more sense for me, but takes on a bit more urgency as well. I don't know, I'd never really thought about it in that way, as a sort of pressing story that has maybe not just the aim of getting the truth out there, but maybe stopping something like this happening again.
Reminds us why we're doing this and why we want to get to the bottom of it. When we were talking about whether she should go on record or not, she was saying, well, who's this for? Who's going to listen to this? And why is this important? But then she also answers her own question.
We already know that we need to speak to Jean. She still hasn't responded to our emails, but we have discovered that she's moved to a small village in France. So we write a letter and send it by courier to her home and wait to see if she'll respond. For a while now, we've been wondering if we're dealing with a strange case of Munchausen syndrome, where people fake illness to get attention from doctors. After speaking to the sisters, we decide we need to talk to an expert to help us make sense of what we've heard. And we send him a briefing paper of what we think we know so far.
My name is Mark Feldman, MD. I'm a psychiatrist based at the University of Alabama, and I've been interested in medical deception of all types for about 30 years.
Dr. Feldman is one of the world's top experts on Munchausen syndrome and its darker cousin, Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
The American Psychiatric Association calls it factitious disorder imposed on another. And that's when a person feigns or exaggerates or, again, actually induces illness in a child in order to appear to be the indefatigable, heroic caregiver. The terminology I like is Munchausen by proxy or medical child abuse when you're talking about someone making their child sick.
Well, the reason we got in touch with you in the first place, Mark, is because we're a little bit stumped. And I know you can't, diagnose remotely and you don't know all the details of the people involved, but it would be really good to just get your professional view generally on some of the material we've gathered. Dr. Feldman obviously can't say for sure. He hasn't seen all the medical records. He's never met Meg or Jean. But let's just say there's a lot in there that seems familiar to him.
I haven't read the records, which they haven't been made available to me, but this case nevertheless screams to me of medical child abuse or Munchausen by proxy, as well as a related condition called malingering by proxy.
How do you see that?
Well, I think having done this sort of work for 30 years made this almost a no-brainer for me. It just seemed obvious. And it's because I've seen so many cases over the years. I mean, over 1,000.
Have you seen others that are similar to this particular one?
I have seen many cases that are not at all dissimilar to this case. I'm aware of perhaps 8 to 10 cases in which America's Make-A-Wish Foundation has given wishes, typically it's to a Disney property, for children who were never sick to begin with.
But Megan wasn't a child when she passed away. She was 23.
In medical child abuse cases, the victim is typically either early verbal or nonverbal. They tend to be infants or toddlers, and they really can't express what's going on. But we also see cases involving adults as victims. And I think if you learn throughout your whole lifetime that there are certain things you're allowed to say and think, and certain things you're not allowed to say or think, you become cooperative. But I think we have to say that there are times when there is active collusion. I don't want to blame the victim, but when the victim gets to be in their 20s or so, there are other options open to them, and they may, to some extent, make the choice just not to go with those.
There seem to be two different versions of Meg. Some people remember her being headstrong and demanding. Jean would flap around trying to please her. In the second version, however, the roles are reversed. It was Jean who was in charge, who ran the show. So who's driving this, though? When it starts, who do you think between the two of them, that dynamic between Meg and Jean?
It's tricky because I would say Jean. Meg was very young for her age, very immature, but also a mixture of them both. But I would say because everything I ever heard about Meg being ill, Jean told us that. Jean, who made the plans for the hospital visits, who said about drinking the Coke before the heart monitor, that it's all Jean.
Kate's older sister Rachel has changed her mind over the years.
So at the time, I was very much of the opinion that it was both of them equally. So I blamed them both until I kind of considered the grooming aspect. And that's what made me change my mind and think, no, actually, it's Jean. Although Megan would have known the things that happened weren't true, that's from grooming. And if you've been groomed to kind of accept that you're allowed that, it's okay for you to do that, why would you not? But at the time, I believed it was both of them.
Megan was an adult for most of the time when both she and Jean were telling supporters about the brain tumour. She was an adult when the doctor's prescription was forged. She was an adult when they spent months at Disney while claiming Megan was seriously ill. But that hardly tells the whole story. Turning 18 is just an arbitrary age, a number. I don't know when exactly someone becomes fully responsible for their actions. Not if they've been conditioned for years, if they're isolated, if they're dependent. I wish I could talk to Megan and find out how she felt about what was happening, how in control she was, whether deep down inside she ever felt pressured to say things she knew weren't true, or if a part of her started to like the attention. I can't. But given everything I've heard, I strongly suspect that Jean could have stopped all this and changed Megan's trajectory. Yet rather than encouraging Megan to live a healthy life and deal with the potentially manageable conditions she did have, in 2011, when Megan was still only 16, Jean set up Believe in Magic. I still don't really understand why they would risk everything by setting up a charity and exposing themselves to public scrutiny. Well, that turns out to be the strangest part of all.
I believe that's why the charity came about and why the charity was started, to get the attention of One Direction.
We put the sisters' allegations to Jean. She sent us the image of a scan which she said was evidence that Megan had a pituitary gland tumour. She also said that she'd been the target of jealousy, bitterness and hatred from one of Megan's stepsisters. She did not address the other allegations in this episode. Believe in Magic is a BBC Studios podcast. It's presented by me, Jamie Bartlett. The series producer is Ruth Mayer. Music by Jeremy Wormsley. Sound design by Peregrine Andrews. The executive producer is Innes Bowen.
Please help trend #HarryFollowMeg for my very poorly daughter @MegStyles, who has a brain tumour. Kiss kiss. @HarryStyles, please follow @MegStyles. Your mum does. Meg is V poorly at the mo, and it would make her feel better. Thanks, from her mum. Kiss kiss. @Louis Tomlinson. Hey, @MegStyles has had 23 operations in 2 years. Could you follow, please, and really make her weekend? Kiss. @HarryStyles. Harry, I know you're gorgeous, and my daughter @MegStyles is crazy about you. Could you please, please, please send her a tweet? Kiss kiss. Please send her a tweet.
In the first 10 months after starting her Twitter account, Jean tweets One Direction 539 times. People fake illness for lots of reasons. Some people do it for predominantly financial gain. They're called malingerers. Others, the Munchausen sufferers like Cindy, who we heard in episode 3, do it because they enjoy the attention, admiration and sympathy that comes with being ill. For Meg and Jean, we're still trying to work out exactly why they did it. I wonder if you remember this.
What's your name? Niall. Niall what? Hi, what's your name?
My name's Zane.
Zane. Nice to meet you. What's your name?
I'm Harry Styles.
Okay. Okay, Harry, how old are you?
I'm 16.
I'm Jamie Bartlett. This is Believe in Magic, Episode 6, One Direction. It's summer 2010, a year before Meg and Jean launched Believe in Magic. 5 teenagers called Niall, Zayn, Harry, Liam and Louis are auditioning for Season 7 of The X Factor.
What are you going to sing?
I'll do Isn't She Lovely by Stevie Wonder.
Okay, good luck.
Simon Cowell decides these 5 teenagers should compete as a band. And although they only come third that year, within a few months, One Direction have become a global sensation. As 1D take over the world, Megan is posting in forums and writing newsletters about her idiopathic intracranial hypertension, that non-life-threatening but very painful illness caused by a build-up of brain fluid around the skull. As a reminder, IIH is not a brain tumour. When she's not raising money for the charity IIH UK, Megan's spending her time watching One Direction. Her friend Natalie Garrett remembers the effect on Meg.
She was absolutely obsessed with One Direction, completely in love with Harry Styles. I think she changed her Twitter to Meg Styles or something like that. She wouldn't stop talking about them.
Megan is almost the same age as Harry Styles. In 2010, she's just 15. And she is besotted. She creates 2 Twitter accounts, @Meg_Styles and @Meg_Styles with an extra S. To fans like Megan, One Direction are more than just a band. A documentary programme that follows fans around finds Directioners waiting outside hotels all night, even memorising band members' weights.
That's like a drug addiction. I've met them 64 times.
Directioners talk of obsession, of loyalty to the 1D lifestyle. They love that the band is good looking and talented, but also normal, likeable and fun.
I love you so much. Please, 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 oh my please. I'm going to die if you don't follow me. Oh, please follow me. I love you.
Millions believe they're truly in love with Harry Styles, Zayn Malik, Louis, Niall and the other one. And one day in March 2011, all Megan's dreams come true when she's invited, along with several other very unwell children, to meet One Direction and some other stars of The X Factor after a show at the O2 Arena in London. It's a whirlwind day. She sings along to their hits, then meets Harry and co backstage. I think Meg and Jean had long been fascinated with illness and the attention that it brings. But maybe it's now, sitting backstage with A-listers, that the pair realise that illness doesn't just get them attention, it's also a way for them to go places and do things that would otherwise be impossible. The more ill you are, the greater the sympathy, the bigger the opportunities. Here's a confession. When I was a teenager, I was convinced that Kate Moss and I would get married one day. It wasn't just a fantasy, I felt like we were destined to be together. And I thought that if I could just talk to her somehow, then she'd realise it too. The only problem was that in the mid-90s, there wasn't really a way for me to contact Kate Moss directly. Every now and again there'd be a picture of her on a super yacht, and it wasn't easy for me to get to her super yacht from North Kent on my paperboy's wages. So Kate and I never did get married in the end. And if you're listening, Kate, sorry, but you've missed your chance. But Believe in Magic arrives at a very special moment in time. In the early 2010s, the internet is starting to make celebrity more accessible. The barrier between the famous and the not famous is being pulled down. Thanks to social media, celebrities can be ordinary people, and ordinary people can be celebrities. No one seems to personify this like One Direction. They are within reach. They turn up in 2010, just as Twitter is taking off, and the band often tweet videos and updates of their daily lives, sometimes even replying to fans' tweets. Directioners share tips and advice about how to get Harry Styles to retweet or follow you. The way to get noticed in the age of social media The way to stand out from the sea of people posting and tweeting and sharing is to become the most extreme version of yourself possible. To be the loudest or the most outrageous. Maybe for Meg and Jean, the same thing was happening with illness. Idiopathic intracranial hypertension or an enlarged pituitary gland wasn't enough to get picked out from the crowd. It had to be something more serious, because a few weeks after meeting One Direction, Jean mentions on Twitter for the first time that Megan has a brain tumour.
22nd of April 2011. Tweet by Jean.
At Evie Burnett. Evie, you are fab. Wish you could follow my 16-year-old daughter at Meg Styles, who has a brain tumour, was a singer before she was ill. Kiss.
Evie Burnett, by the way, was a vocal coach on The X Factor. And in the following weeks, even before Believe in Magic exists, Meg and Jean go on a kind of digital campaign, sometimes tweeting hundreds of times a day, especially at celebrities, Philip Schofield, Danny Minogue, Piers Morgan, asking them for a retweet or a follow back. And above all, One Direction. And why should they listen? Why should they follow her? Because Megan is so ill. She has a brain tumour. And when Meg and Jean decide to create Believe in Magic in the summer of 2011, the top priority is to get One Direction to post about it.
At Harry Styles. My daughter is very poorly and had 23 operations. She's started a charity at Believe in Magic to spread magic. Please retweet and follow. Kiss, kiss.
Twitter has special automated systems to block spam, which spot identical messages. To get around them, Jean posts a slight variant of that message, moving a full stop or adding a kiss at 5:57 p.m, 7:11 p.m, 7:15 p.m, 7:16 p.m twice, 7:17 p.m twice, and 8:50 p.m. As far as Meg's sister Kate is concerned, Meg and Jean don't simply want One Direction to promote their charity. One Direction could even be the reason they set the charity up in the first place.
I believe that's why the charity came about and why the charity was started, to get the attention of One Direction. And then...
Why do you say that?
Because I think that's what happened. I would say 99% sure that's why.
Because of the order of events, or because you saw what was going on?
Yeah, and I saw what, and I knew what they're like, and I obviously things that they were saying, what they were doing. So she was desperately trying to get their attention, and I see how they've done it, and it's a case of they've started this charity because that is one way to get in to the celebrities and to get One Direction's attention.
A few weeks later, Meg and Jean's prayers are answered.
6th of August 2011. Tweet by Harry Styles.
Everyone should follow and support at Believe in Magic. It's a great cause.
700 new followers in 15 minutes. Within days, they had thousands. Harry follows Meg. Louis Tomlinson also follows. And Meg has become one of the lucky few people around the world followed by One Direction. She has a direct line to celebrity. If this was the plan, it worked better than Meg and Jean could ever have hoped. Within months of Meg and Jean talking about a brain tumour on Twitter, One Direction are wearing Believe in Magic wristbands on stage. Harry Styles' mum climbs Mount Kilimanjaro to raise money for the charity. The band donate merch that Meg and Jean then raffle off or sell on eBay. And thanks to One Direction support, Believe in Magic becomes a household name in the child cancer community almost overnight. It might seem far-fetched, almost silly, but faking illness to access the magical world of celebrity isn't as strange as it seems. For 30 years, our Munchausen expert Mark Feldman has studied people who pretend to be ill. This used to take place in the doctor's consultation room or hospital. But now, deception in the hospital is often combined with posting and tweeting, because you'll often get just as much sympathy and attention in the virtual world as the real one.
Well, back in 2000, I coined a term called Munchausen by Internet, and that was based on the fact that I was becoming aware that some of the illness deceptions were taking place entirely online or partially online and partially in real life. And since then, I've heard about hundreds of those cases. And we see a permutation now where going online and mobilizing celebrities in particular, and they tend to be sports heroes, but they can be musicians, provides an entree into a world that these people never otherwise would have encountered. One of the first cases I heard about was a person misrepresenting their health status in a special interest group devoted to the singer Bruce Springsteen. And there was always the hope among all the members that Bruce himself would log on and encourage their involvement and support and thank them and become friends with them, and they'd be on a first name basis. There are many, many, many groups like that, and illness can be the entree that allows someone to emerge out of the pack of people who are infatuated with this celebrity. And especially dire illness or changing illnesses or life-threatening illnesses.
The best lies contain a grain of truth. After all the people we've spoken to and all the documents we've analysed, I've realised just how imprecise and inexact medical science really is. And there are still things we don't know. But here's my working theory of what happened and why. The doctors really were treating Megan for idiopathic intracranial hypertension right up to her death, and some other manageable conditions too. Even though these illnesses can be serious, they weren't, at least not initially, life-threatening. And it's awful to say, they're not glamorous. They don't allow you to emerge from the pack. I think that when Megan is diagnosed with a relatively mild and fairly common enlarged pituitary gland in 2010, Meg and Jean take that grain of truth and turn it into a life-threatening brain tumour. That compelling story, the girl with a brain tumour running a charity, takes off. Believe in Magic grows, and Meg and Jean became the fairy godmothers, celebrities in their own right. The letter Kate saw in 2013 from Boston Children's Hospital said Meg did not have evidence for a pituitary gland abnormality, and it's not mentioned in the coroner's inquest. Perhaps the enlarged pituitary gland had gone back to normal, as it can do with teenagers. But by then, it's too late. The lie is too established. They're in too deep.
Now, we have another inspirational young lady in the studio with us. She has these little bands for her charity.
So what's your year been like?
It's been the most incredible year, really. Believe in Magic has grown so much, and more than really we ever dreamed it could.
You have the boys, they're wearing your wristbands in 40 countries, so now your wristbands are available.
Do you know how many companies would kill for that opportunity?
Yeah. I mean, that's actually ridiculous. How do you persuade these people to get involved?
I think people really like that. Because I'm 17 and because I've been poorly myself, it means they kind of get it more than if it's just... I don't really know, I think they get the story behind it.
Megan's right. The story behind it is Megan's brain tumour, her 20-plus operations, her life-threatening condition. Without that story, there probably isn't a Believe in Magic. The celebrity connections and newfound fame will disappear if Megan isn't seriously ill. Dark as this story is, I think they both loved helping children. And illness allowed Meg and Jean to do that too. Natalie Garrett from the IIH forum used to see Megan all the time. But by 2013, as Believe in Magic grew, they saw less and less of each other. She'd helped Meg get an appointment at one of the UK's top neurosurgeons, but Meg and Jean hadn't turned up. Natalie was worried. She tried to talk to Meg about this at the 2013 Believe in Magic Christmas party at the Tower of London.
Meg was running around as normal, and she was out in the back, and I went and sat on the stairs and says, Meg, what's going on? I said, you keep telling people you're really, really poorly and you're doing all of this. Why are you risking yourself? If you're this sick, why are you doing it? And Jean walked in, and Meg said, oh, well, I'm fine. And to sort of go to brush you off sort of thing, I said, come on, tell me, what's going on? And Jean said, oh, Natalie, all you need to know is the sicker Meg is, the more attention we get, the more money we make. And then all of her little buddies came in cooing over her, and she stopped talking to me. And so, then I said to the people that we were there with, I said, we're going now. I just felt helpless, felt powerless to do anything. And I talked about it with my ex-husband. I talked about it a lot and said, what do you think we could do? And he said, nothing, just walk away. So I did.
So the Tower of London was the last time you saw her?
Yeah. And Jean. The last time I spoke to Jean was Tower of London. Never spoke to Jean again.
The brain tumour allowed them to set up a real charity with real donors, giving hundreds of thousands of pounds of real money. But running a charity is a serious legal commitment. Donations must be spent in line with the charity's objectives, and there are strict accounting and reporting rules. Maybe Believe in Magic grew too fast. Maybe the fame and celebrity went to Meg and Jean's heads, and the boundary between the charity money and their own became blurred. Either way, in 2020, the Charity Commission concluded its investigation into Believe in Magic. They found accounts were filed late or not at all. They weren't independently examined. Over £100,000 was unaccounted for. Charity money had been transferred into Jean's personal bank account. The Charity Commission concluded that all this amounted to misconduct and/or mismanagement. Jean agreed not to be a trustee or in a senior management position in any charity for 5 years. The charity was dissolved, and on the 17th of August 2020, Believe in Magic was removed from the official register. Munchausen syndrome is about deceit. But it seems that for Meg and Jean, there were two types of lies. There was the public lie, the inspirational young woman with a life-threatening brain tumour who ran a large charity and who needed to raise money for her own treatment. The lie which helped her rub shoulders with One Direction and become a celebrity. But from what we've learned, there was the private lie too. It predated Believe in Magic. It happened inside the consultation rooms, where doctors were told she needed morphine because of acute pain, had serious infections, or couldn't lie down because of intracranial hypertension, despite tests showing nothing. If the private lies were spotted sooner, maybe the public lie would never have been possible. For months, the producer Ruth and I tried to speak to doctors involved in the case, hoping they could tell us why it was so hard to intervene. We contacted everyone who spoke at the coroner's inquest and messaged American doctors we know they visited. We kept hitting the same roadblock: patient-doctor confidentiality, because doctors have a legal duty to keep our medical history private, even after we die. But finally, we found someone who could help us. It was almost by accident. Danya Glazer is a retired consultant child and adolescent psychiatrist, formerly at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. She specialises in child abuse and neglect, and has a special interest in fabricated and induced illness, previously known as Munchausen syndrome by proxy. That's where a parent or caregiver exaggerates or invents their children's symptoms to doctors, either mistakenly or deliberately.
Right, well, I'm very old. I trained initially as a developmental paediatrician and then went into child psychiatry, and then I developed thinking on emotional abuse, and then eventually I veered into fabricated or induced illness.
We got in touch with Dr. Glaser because she helped write the UK guidelines for doctors on how to spot fabricated or induced illness. It turns out she already knows about the case of Meg and Jean, although she never met them in person. She won't really say how much she knows.
I am moderately familiar with the case. I only heard about it, but a colleague of mine knew more about it, and the colleague then told me, and I became more familiar with the facts a little bit from the inside.
We have this slightly strange backward and forward. Ruth and I are trying to work out what she knows. Dr. Glaser almost wants to tell us something, but can't.
I don't know that all the doctors who may well have individually noted alerting signs, I don't know that they got together. That's as far as I can say on that case. I don't know that they did. Don't know.
Ruth remembers that one of the doctors in the coroner's inquest had tried to get everyone involved in Megan's care together. Because she was seeing so many different medical professionals, they were worried that they never had the full picture.
So what I've been told is that there was some concern amongst some doctors, and there was a decision that they were going to try and see her more as a group, but then after that they never went back to those doctors.
Yeah.
All of the alerting signs were, on the face of it, visible.
Well, that's why I said to you, yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah.
From what I know of the case.
Dr. Glaser explains that from what she knows, the case of Meg and Jean is very complicated. When I ask if medical professionals failed Megan, she says it's hard to blame one person. Doctors aren't always brilliant at admitting they're confused by a case, and they don't want to miss anything, especially if the young person themselves is reporting certain symptoms.
Can I ask, but are you able to say whether you think this case was FII?
FII stands for fabricated or induced illness, the new term for Munchausen syndrome by proxy.
Let me put it at its lowest and say it certainly has elements which suggest that it could be FII. And in a way, it's up to either yourselves or your listeners to try to put two and two together and say, yes, this was, by you telling them what FII is and telling them what was the case. And then it's up to people to make their own minds up.
And then she says something strange, almost throwaway.
I don't know what happened with the Kingston Review, and I don't know. You may not be able to get because you know the identity.
The Kingston Review. We've not heard about the Kingston Review until now, but we do know that Meg and Jean lived in the London borough of Kingston. After the interview, Ruth does a bit of digging and works out this probably refers to something called a Safeguarding Adults Review. These are rare, secretive investigations into cases where people have been seriously let down by the authorities. They usually involve doctors, social workers, even the police. There are only a handful a year, if that. When they're published, the names of the people involved are normally changed. Only those who know the background, people like me and Ruth, will realise who it's about. Ruth and I have spent months trying to put this puzzle together, but there are several pieces still missing. We know at one point there was a police investigation, but it was closed due to lack of evidence. Could this Kingston Review reopen the case? Maybe this document can finally resolve the story. No one knows about it. Not Kate and Rachel, not Joe and the Sleuths.
So Jamie, I have just had an email from...
Oh no, what now?
The press team communications at the Royal Borough of Kingston upon Thames.
Right. Okay.
This
is important. This is important.
I had been told that there was something called a safeguarding adults review into what happened with Megan, and that would have been done after her death. So I put in a request to Kingston for that review.
Yeah.
And they've just said to me, due to the fact that the safeguarding adults review has not been completed, we are unable to share any further information at this time. The review is anticipated to be signed off in April 2022.
They're still working on it. Oh my God.
So basically, this is incredibly important. And when these things come out, they're news.
Yeah, but it may be that there'll be a huge news story about this, but no one will know who this is about. But we will.
And what kind of a position does that put us in?
Yeah, I know, exactly. What are we supposed to do with that?
We suddenly realise we're in the middle of an emerging case. Because right now, it turns out we're not the only people trying to get to the bottom of this story. Far from it. When this report is published, everything could change. Believe in Magic is a BBC Studios podcast. It's presented by me, Jamie Bartlett. The series producer is Ruth Mayer. Music by Jeremy Wormsley. Sound design by Peregrine Andrews. The executive producer is Innes Bowen. Archive in this episode is from Fremantle Simcoe Limited, Mentorn Media and BBC Archive.
Hey Ruth.
Hey Jamie.
How you doing?
Guess where I am?
Could I possibly guess?
So we're actually we've actually just come to the little village.
Ruth, the producer, is driving through Brittany in northwest France to a village where Jean used to live. She's with a French-speaking journalist, Sarah. I'm back in London.
I don't know why I feel so nervous about going to a place where Jean was once. It's a bit ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
It's just 7 minutes down the road, so I'm driving there now.
So what are you going to do this afternoon now?
Plan A right now is just drive there and have a look at her house, and I guess see if anyone's living there, and then I guess we've got to get up the courage to go and knock on the door.
Well, it's tough knocking on doors, isn't it?
Yeah.
You might find that within half an hour you've got it already, and that's it.
Yeah.
Come back home again.
That would be nice.
I'm Jamie Bartlett. This is Believe in Magic, Episode 7, Jean. Megan might have been the public face of Believe in Magic, but her mother Jean was with her every step of the way. In 2013, Jean gave an interview on local radio. This is the only recording we have of her.
Believe in Magic was started by my daughter Meg, and when she was just 16 actually. She'd been very poorly herself for about 4 years then, and was in and out of many hospitals in London, mostly Great Ormond Street. And Meg wanted to do something to make a difference to their lives. So she set up Believe in Magic, which became a registered charity about.
We need to talk to Jean, to see what she might say about the charity, her account of Meg's brain tumour, and the last few years of Megan's life. We had been told she was living in France. We'd sent her a letter asking if she'd agree to speak. We got no answer. Her social media accounts are dormant. Our emails don't deliver.
Okay, it's sent.
Okay.
Mail, address not found.
This came back already.
Yeah.
Her phone numbers don't work.
You've dialed an incorrect number.
No.
Okay.
She doesn't want to be found, does she?
We wanted to go to France to see her in person, but just as we're planning our trip, we hear she's left. and we have no idea where she's gone. So we decide to ring around, starting with the sleuths.
Hello, Joanna speaking.
Hi Joe, it's Jamie here with Ruth. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, how are you?
Not too bad. We've been trying now for some months to find Jean.
Yeah.
Just wanted to know whether you'd heard anything at all about where she might be right now.
France, that's the last I heard. There was talk of her living near a family member. But
Right.
it was all hearsay. I can't even remember where I've heard that. Sorry.
Yeah, well, thanks for that. Thanks for taking the call like at short notice like that.
Next up, Lucy Pettigini, Jean's old friend from Believe in Magic.
Hi, Lucy. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Very good.
Good. Ruth and I are trying to track down Jean.
She's gone off radar a long, long time. Last I heard, she'd gone to France. That was like a couple of years ago.
Right.
Literally, like, just gone off, completely off grid.
And she...
I don't know. I tried to contact her through, like, Messenger. Her phone numbers, I haven't tried calling her number, but I think she changed her number a long time ago. I imagine she'd just disappear, especially without Meg.
No one seems to know where Jean is. Her daughters, Rachel and Kate, haven't heard from her in years. By now, Ruth and I are getting closer to working out what really happened to Meg and Believe in Magic. We need to put our allegations to Jean so she has the chance to respond. We know she's not in France anymore, but France might be our best chance at finding her. So Ruth travels to the village where she lived to see if anyone has a forwarding address.
Okay, so we are just pulling up in front of Jean's old house. All the windows are shut and all the curtains are shut. Right, let's see what we can do. It's like a little stone house, part of a terrace on a main road through a village. I'm standing now around the back of Jean's house. There's a big stack of wood. I wonder whether the house has central heating or whether they just use wood in it.
Through Believe in Magic, Meg and Jean raised hundreds of thousands of pounds. The Charity Commission inquiry found large cash withdrawals and transfers to a trustee's personal bank account. Some people we spoke to were convinced Jean would be living a life of luxury, but that's not what Ruth found.
I've been told that she bought the house for €6,000, so not a huge amount. It's definitely not a wealthy village. There are quite a lot of houses. One looks kind of abandoned. The front door, the glass has been smashed. I think this is where you come when you don't have a lot of money anymore. So I think if she did have riches from Believe in Magic, they'd very much gone by this point.
There was nobody at Jean's house, so Ruth and Sarah decided to try the neighbours.
Okay. Okay. I don't know, it looks pretty shut to me. Yeah. Should we try our neighbours?
Yeah, I think the one on the end definitely looks like a nice one.
Bonjour, on cherche Jean. Il y a une dame qui s'appelle Jean qui habitait là.
One neighbour remembered Jean and pointed them to a house down the street. Jean was good friends with the couple who lived there.
Okay, the third white house.
That one. That.
Okay.
Parfait. Merci.
Oh.
Hi.
Hello.
Did you know the lady who lived across the road? Jean was a very good friend of ours. She moved out here after her daughter passed.
Yeah.
And she lived here for just over a year and a half. And then she sold up and moved back to the UK. We were talking to her and saw her every day. We became really, really close to her. And so, and then, I haven't heard from her since July. She left in July.
What, she just took off?
She sold the house.
Katerina is a glamorous Australian in her early 50s who now lives in France with her husband and daughter. She invited Ruth and Sarah into her house. It's larger than Jean's, with thick stone walls. She told them about the first time she met Jean.
I was sitting on the front step in the sun with my dog, and she stopped in her car, and with her little dog in the passenger seat, which was a dog that she'd bought for Meg as a child. And she said, "Hello, how are you? I'm Jean." And I'm like, "Hi, Jean, I'm Katerina." And she said, "Oh, lovely to meet you. If you ever need anything or you want to have a cup of coffee, come on over and knock on my door." And that's what it started off as, just bright, bubbly Jean passing in her car, saying hello.
For over a year, Katerina saw Jean almost every day. They became very close.
Always a smile on her face, always asking how you are you okay, do you need anything, is there anything I can do for you? If you asked how she was, she would always brush herself off as fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. She never had anything bad to say about anybody, not one word.
Gradually, Jean opened up to Katerina about her past. She would sit until late at night at Katerina's table, telling her what had happened before she came to France.
She mentioned only briefly about the charity, didn't really talk about that much, just that Jean and Meg had started a charity and that did her best to help people who were ill. She said that she had been in the UK, her daughter had been very ill for many, many years, got only worse, done all kinds of treatments in the UK and abroad, and that Meg just wasn't getting any better, and no one could say definition what was wrong with her, and they were all trying different drugs and different doctors and all kinds of different procedures, and nothing was helping her. Near the last couple of years, Meg had to sleep in a armchair upright, and Jean had explained to us that she was so ill that she had to have 28 injections in 24 hours.
So far, it's the same account Jean has been telling people for years. But Katerina's one of the only people who knows the next part of Jean's story.
Meg passing and how devastating it was to her and how it broke down everything in her life. You can tell she had tragedy because, she looked very, very, not old, but like worn out and just, a person who's had a tragic life. She, for her 60 odd years, you would have thought she was 80. Jean had explained to us that once Megan had died, that they had done an inquest to find out what the cause of death was, and that was just really, really terrible. She hated talking about that.
According to Jean, that she didn't say whether or not they found the brain tumour or anything like that.
According to Jean, they did find something, but it could not determine exactly that was the cause of death. So I think there was a lot of information. It's hard to remember all the bits and pieces. We're both crying at the table and she's talking about it. So, yeah, it was very hard.
Sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, Jean was just a lovely person. And you could see the heartbreak and the pain in her face and in her, with no hair and really, really worn out. It just was really hard to see.
With Katerina's support, Jean gradually became stronger. She started giving away Megan's clothes and belongings. Her hair, which had fallen out, regrew. So Katerina never expected what happened next.
We were in constant contact with her and, then suddenly just everything stopped. I didn't get any more communication since about June. I would say it to my husband, I would say it to another friend of mine, how strange it was, not her personality. I hoped that nothing had happened to her. But yes.
Did she say anything about where she'd gone?
She had mentioned that she would love to go to spend half the year in Spain when it's cold and half the year in the UK. But yeah, she did mention that she didn't have much money, so that she would have to kind of be a bit of a nomad.
Hey Ruth, how you doing?
It sort of said she's on the south coast,
On the south coast.
near the beach.
The last message Jean sent to Katerina was a picture with a caption, "The beach where I live." It was somewhere on the south coast of England. Near the beach, on the south coast. That's a pretty big area.
I've got a photo of the beach.
Oh, have you?
Where she lives.
Oh, hang on. Well, then I can use that. We'll probably be able to find it from that. Oh, well, that's brilliant. The image Jean had sent to Katerina showed a pebbly beach with wooden groins stretching out into the sea to protect the coastline. In the next few days, I tried to match it up with pictures of South Coast beaches online. I even called up someone who'd written a book about the British seaside, but he couldn't identify it. But we did have other clues as well. Katerina said Jean had talked of going back to where she'd once lived with Megan. Ruth looks up her old addresses. There are several near a popular but unglamorous holiday town on the south coast of England, one in a caravan park. We even hear she's been spotted in that area in the past couple of weeks.
Morning, morning.
All in all, enough to jump in a car one rainy Thursday and head to the south coast. How you doing?
I'm fine. Nice day for the beach.
Lovely weather for it. Oh, yeah. It's miserable, isn't it? It is horrible. Matches my mood. So, first of all, job today really is to get down there. We've got all the stuff you found out in France that's helped us narrow it down to here. And the first job is let's just see if we can find out where she is. Like, is she actually there? As we drive south, Ruth and I reflect on our feelings about Jean. Is it possible to feel sorry for her, even knowing what we know? Like everything else in this story, it's not simple.
I keep on swinging from feeling quite sympathetic towards Jean to feeling, no, this is horrific what's happened, and the things that she could have done to Megan, and lying to all those people as well with dying children.
I think both of us have this feeling, which is being able to simultaneously think it's terrible or like unexplainably bad what you've done. We need to expose what you've done. It's awful. And I also feel very sorry for you. You've lost your daughter. You probably never meant that to happen. And we're grappling these two like conflicting feelings about her at the same time. And so you swing from one to the other, but you basically feel both. You talk about it and then you feel bad, and then you think of something and then feel angry, and then you think about something else and feel bad again. And
totally.
We arrive just as the rain clears and walk out onto a vast pebbled beach to see if it matches the picture Jean sent. Let's have a look.
Is that it?
We pull out the photograph. There's a white building in the background. The problem is that the south coast of England has miles and miles of similar looking beaches dotted with similar looking low-rise buildings. Which looks like it might be a little bit further around that way.
Do you think we should drive there? It's quite far.
Hang on, we've just come down to another beach. We're going to just go through the pier. Space Invaders. I think it's the next one. Beach. Could that be the white building? After beach.
Is that starting to look like that thing over there?
After beach. It's not quite right, is it? No. Come on. What are you saying from here?
It's not quite right. It doesn't curve.
It's getting dark and we're starting to feel a little despondent. But then, the next morning, we have a breakthrough. Yeah, there's loads of surfers out and the sun is absolutely, like, right in my face. I can't see that. Do you see the white building there?
That is it.
Look, it's that, isn't it?
That is 100%
That's it. It's this groin out there with a little triangle on the top. It's definitely here. This is the beach. Oh, God, thank God. I'm so glad we found it. So now we've got to find a car. We know her car, we know her registration. If Jean really lives near this beach, her car could be nearby. So we start driving up and down every street. What was the number plate again? I just saw a Mercedes and I thought it was it.
That's not her car.
It's not her car, is it? Just keep your eyes out for that number plate. We visit all her old addresses, just in case. Yeah, that's a bloke living there. Very nice.
That's not Jean.
No, it's not Jean, is it? It's such an unusual place to live. This is a holiday destination and this is a holiday home on the beach. But then that's her, isn't it? Life is just a it's just a movie. Life is just a story. It sort of makes some sense. But if she's got no money, I don't think she's living around here. We decide to try the local shops. We've been into every cafe, every shop, estate agent, lettings, dog grooming place, 2 hairdressers. And what did we get? I mean, actually the woman in the lettings agency, she was really quite sure she'd seen her. Everyone else was pretty much, no, don't recognise her. Maybe she was here for a month or 2, like not very long. Just in the summer months, and now it's November, maybe she's left again. So I got a feeling that maybe she's moved on. We head back to London. So how do you feel about today then, Ruth?
No, I feel a bit flat and I feel a bit silly for having thought that we would find her.
How important was it to get her side of the story? I mean, that's the other thing. Like, were we expecting her to be honest with us anyway?
Not really.
We had wanted to ask Jean why she'd lied, why she had sought the attention of so many families with sick children, why she'd exaggerated Megan's health issues. All for a few months in a luxury Disney resort, a stint on a cruise liner, and a connection with One Direction. Was it all worth it in the end? Somehow, I'd always imagined we'd knock on Jean's door one day. Not finding her was disappointing. But I thought back to our interview with Munchausen specialist Mark Feldman.
The denial tends to be so massive in these cases that I often find it pointless to sit down with accused perpetrators because I know what the truth is. I've read the records. I know what happened. I've spoken with family, friends, attorneys, the court, and they just come in and lie to me. They have an explanation for every inconsistency, or they just refuse to answer, or their lawyers refuse to let them answer in the US. So I haven't found the magic key that will unlock their denial.
Maybe it wasn't Jean we needed to find. For a long time, we thought we were the only ones looking into the case of Meg and Jean. But at the end of the last episode, we were told Kingston Council had ordered something called a Safeguarding Adults Review. These are only carried out when an adult has either died from or experienced possible abuse or neglect, and there has been some sort of failure by the authorities to protect them. All the agencies involved, like doctors, police, and adult social workers, contribute. When the reports are published, the victims are given fake names to protect their identity. This Safeguarding Adults Review would be the only public report into what happened to Meg, written by people with access to information we can't ever have. The closest thing to an official account of Megan's story. It was originally meant to be published in April 2022, when we were in the middle of our investigation. It wasn't.
In the summer, I kept in touch with the press office. I emailed them in the beginning of June, the middle of July, emailed them in August. It is now expected to be published in September.
We get another email in late September saying it's delayed further. And then suddenly, one day in early November, I get a voice message from Ruth.
Hi Jamie, I'm out and about and I just checked the Kingston website, as I do from time to time, and the report is out.
Ruth and I jump on a call to read it together. Finally, this is it. It may just be a report, but for us, it could contain the answer we've been looking for. What really happened to Megan Bhari? I've never felt so nervous clicking on a link.
So, right, I'm going to click on it. Here we go. Her post-mortem examination revealed no brain tumour. The coroner stated there was no evidence that she had any physical illness.
That much we know already from the coroner's report. But there's more.
Despite there being no formal diagnosis of FII in this case, the presentation and coroner's conclusion lead all involved to think it was likely to have been FII. Right. Wow. Everyone here who's taken part in this, what we understand, very, very detailed, rigorous, long investigation, have said all of them think it was likely to have been fabricated or induced illness. That's Munchausen's by proxy. It's strange to read that, isn't it? Because we sort of thought that ourselves, but I don't know whether no one had ever really said it in writing, or no one had ever formally. I felt like we have been reaching that conclusion ourselves without, kind of based on the things we've seen, but not having all the material available to us. So there was always a bit of doubt or a bit of uncertainty in my mind about it. But I mean, the fact that now everyone who's looked at this now thinks it was likely to have been FII, I don't really know what to think, to be honest. I mean, it sort of confirms what we thought, but it makes it a little sadder. You know, like that's really what happened.
Yeah.
It's very sad to see it, and then sort of brings back what Megan was going through, what she was being put through.
Supported by her mother, she sought to engage with many private and NHS services to manage a range of reported health conditions that included having a brain tumour. And, you know, we know this report has been done by the adult board, the Safeguarding Adult Board, but we know that this behaviour started when she was a child, and had that happened, this might have been seen as a case of child abuse, because her mother would have been, you know, required to be there to sign off on every procedure, like she had the brain shunt before she was 18, she had lumbar punctures before she was 18. It says here the coroner stated there was no evidence that she had any physical illness. Does that mean she didn't even have intracranial hypertension?
While making this series, Ruth and I both noticed something strange. Many people's lives were so touched by Meg and Jean, both positively and negatively, that it was hard for them to make sense of what had happened. The whole affair was still shrouded in rumour and allegation, clouded by bitterness and the heavy emotional weight of a story about children with life-threatening illness. It felt like people were looking to Ruth and me to figure it out for them, just so they could know and deal with it in their own way. This was most obviously true for Jean's two daughters, Megan's older sisters. After we found the Kingston Review, Ruth and I felt for the first time like we actually had an answer. So we decided to talk with the sisters one last time to tell them about it ourselves.
Thank you so much for picking us up.
That's all right.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare trying to get taxis round here.
We get to Kate's house. She's in the process of moving, so we're told to watch for wet paint and sorry about the mess. As we set up, I ask Rachel why she decided to talk with us in the first place.
I think this is the first time anybody's put everything together and looked at this holistically instead of just looking at one element each time. Something is not right with this. This is our possible one chance that we can get answers for every little tiny confusing angle of this story.
As well as that, I think Rachel also wants answers for herself. For years she's wondered if she too was a victim of something similar, whether Jean had been responsible for her having kidney failure.
We didn't find Jean.
Oh, did you not?
No, but we did find something else, and one of the reasons we came is because I wanted to sort of show you it before anyone else, so you get to see it. And I brought a copy down.
We give the Kingston Safeguarding Adults Review to Kate and Rachel, explaining that they are rare investigations which take place when someone dies from abuse or neglect, and the authorities could have done more to protect them.
This was published last week, so take a look.
There's a silence while they take in what this is. Then Rachel reads the line that stuck with me and Ruth.
Despite there being no formal diagnosis of FII in this case, the presentation and coroner's conclusion lead all involved to think it was likely to have been FII.
Basically the modern word for Munchausen's by proxy. What does it make you think when you read that?
It's good that this has been recognised.
Yeah.
It's kind of everything all in one right there, and it's kind of like a conclusion to this really sad story.
Even though you knew, even though you were certain, just to see that it's other professionals see it and recognise it, and it has a name. And
it's good. It's a good thing to have and to be able to see and read, and it's all there in black and white, and yeah, it's clicking things in my head. I'm realising now, for me, it's pretty much confirmation that the same was done to me, and I'm just trying to process that at the moment.
For Kate, the report is also validation of some sort.
We felt like it was forgotten, like there was, that was it. So this basically just is a confirmation of everything we've been saying and what we've said all along, and that actually, we were correct. I've always known, but it's just nice to actually go, yeah, there it is.
Does it change, having seen it in black and white, does it change your view on sort of Megan's role in this relative to Jean's?
She was a victim. She was so young when this happened, and she was groomed for this, and I absolutely think she was a victim.
The report doesn't just include a summary of Megan's case. It also documents how the health and social care system failed to prevent it from happening.
If you look back on this document, this sort of shocked me.
On what page?
Well, page 2. If you just have a look at page 2, Finding 1, FII guidance for adult safeguarding. There is a total lack of safeguarding guidance and training related to fabricated and induced illness in young adults for the professionals with statutory adult safeguarding responsibilities. But if you look at it, six findings, and they're all just about failure, how the system wasn't working, that there just didn't seem to be anything in place for this kind of case where you have an adult and a parent and a child who's now an adult, but for whom it started when they were very young. So
missing that crossover.
Yeah, missing that crossover from child to adult, and very hard for the system to recognise the risk to Megan as an adult because she was an adult. It was really on her, whereas that doesn't capture the whole story when it started when you're a child.
Yeah. Especially when you've been kind of, as we've said, use the word groomed.
Yeah.
That's you're basically a vulnerable adult who is kind of controlled, really.
Yeah.
Will this change anything in the future? Will it be taken seriously?
Maybe health professionals will know how to spot this better. It might actually lead to something, and that would be one small, silver lining to this whole story.
Fabricated or induced illness is defined as a rare form of child abuse. But it doesn't distinguish between those parents who are deliberately deceiving doctors and those who have a genuinely mistaken belief that their child is ill. It's often so hard to prove that a parent was deliberately harming their child that most cases are never prosecuted. This report does not say that FII caused Megan's death, but it does highlight how Megan's case could have been missed. The system saw Megan as an adult capable of making her own decisions, when in truth she was, in many ways, still a child. The system saw Megan as a patient reporting symptoms in the privacy of a doctor's surgery, but she was also an internet celebrity, with identity and meaning attached to having a brain tumour. We've spoken to a Munchausen expert who says this report is extremely significant. It could even be used to help doctors spot what some young adults, like Megan, might be going through and prevent it happening again. "5 days after Megan died, the sisters received an email from their mother. It was written as a letter from Jean to Meg. Jean says that Megan meant everything to her and she would never harm her. She blames Joe and the Sleuths for Megan's death, the very people who tried to save her. It's tragic, Jean says, that Megan had to die for everyone to realise she'd been telling the truth all along." The sisters both read the email and didn't reply. That was the last contact they ever had with Jean. A couple of years after Megan died, just after the Charity Commission shut down Believe in Magic, an article appeared in the Times newspaper. "Girl faked brain tumour to dupe stars out of cash and live high life," the headline read. The focus of the article was squarely on Meg. Ms. Bhari appealed for funds to repeatedly travel to America for medical treatment. But beneath the article was one cryptic comment.
"The full truth is so much darker, but the blame for this should not be placed on Meg. Her death was a tragedy and, in my opinion, totally avoidable. She was an amazing young lady and I will never forget her."
Just wanted to do something to sort of give them the magical experiences back.
It was from Megan's friend, Natalie Garrett. It was that comment that set us off on this whole investigation. And at the time, even Natalie didn't know how dark the truth really was. After the article was published, Jean took to Facebook. Once again, she denied everything. Then she deleted her account. As we finish this podcast, Ruth and I often talk to each other about whether Jean will listen to it and what she'd think if she did. We wonder if she's seen the Kingston review. I still want to know what Jean would say in response to everything we've reported. If you're listening, Jean, you know how to reach us.
Hey Ruth.
Hey, how are you?
I'm not bad, yeah, pretty good.
You're not going to believe this. I got an email from Jean.
Oh my God.
We thought we'd finished this series.
Okay.
For a year we'd tried and failed to contact Jean. And then, just as we were ready to release the podcast, Jean finally replies. She says she was advised not to contact us, but now feels she has no choice.
She says in her email that she's been the target of jealousy, bitterness and hatred from one of Megan's stepsisters. I think she means one of her half-sisters. And she accuses us of harassing people close to her. She asks us to pause publication. Attached to her email are 4 images from a brain scan. Jean says they're from the final MRI taken before Megan's death. They're proof, she says, that Megan had a pituitary adenoma, a type of brain tumour.
I mean, I'm going to have to sit down and look at this.
It's hard not to question yourself when you get an email like this. Ruth and I take a deep breath and carefully look at the MRI evidence Jean has sent.
It's really blurry, though. You can't quite make all the words out.
It's a photograph of a crumpled piece of paper with 4 brain scan images in the middle.
And the writing around it is just so difficult to make out because it's a really tiny picture.
If we squint, we can just about read some words.
Above the 4 scan images is a sentence that has been highlighted, sort of a box has been drawn around it. I think it says, in conclusion, the imaging appearances are suggestive of a right pituitary microadenoma.
A pituitary microadenoma is a very small type of non-cancerous brain tumour, which is typically not life-threatening, although it can be dangerous. In very rare cases, this type of tumour can become cancerous, and it would then be referred to as a pituitary carcinoma. We can't make out every word, but as far as we can tell, there's no mention of carcinoma anywhere in this document. We don't know who wrote those words on the images Jean sent us. There's no heading on the letter, no doctor names or hospitals. It doesn't look like a doctor's letter to me. And there's nothing which shows it's a scan of Megan's brain. But it's scary seeing this. Have we missed something? Ruth and I think back to what else we've seen. At the inquest, none of her doctors mentioned a brain tumour, instead saying they had concerns about her medical claims. The forensic pathologist who carried out the post-mortem didn't see any evidence of a tumour.
The brain itself, apart from the shunt, appeared morphologically normal. It had a normal weight, and there were no signs of either cerebral edema or raised intracranial pressure.
And the sisters saw a letter from an American doctor which said Megan did not have evidence for a pituitary gland abnormality. Jean doesn't reply to any of our other allegations. She doesn't have anything to say about what was found at the coroner's inquest or about the Disney stay. She doesn't mention the fact that the Kingston Review concluded Megan was likely the victim of fabricated or induced illness, although she does say, quote, "Suggesting I might have harmed Megan in any way at all is absolutely sickening." Jean warns us about getting sucked into social media lies and signs off by saying, "May God forgive you for the lies you tell." There will probably always be some uncertainty in this story. That's part of dealing with illness and disease. Things are rarely 100% certain. You weigh things up and you make a judgment. Our judgment was to publish this. We didn't tell the story of Believe in Magic to cause distress to anyone, although we know it will. We did it because people should know what happened, and because maybe in another case, someone might spot what's going on sooner. It's too late for Megan. Maybe it's not too late for someone else.
Believe in Magic is a BBC Studios podcast. It was written and presented by me, Jamie Bartlett. It was developed, series produced and written by Ruth Mayer. The producer was Lucy Greenwell. The executive producer was Innes Bowen. Original music by Jeremy Wormsley. The mix engineer and sound designers were Peregrine Andrews and Arlie Adlington. The sound engineers were Aaron Cazzola and Steve Townsend. The actors were Anna Darby, Chloe Lewis, Angus Ruffley and Terry Burns. Production manager, Elena Boateng. Production coordinator, Juliette Harvey. Production executive, Laura Jordan Rowell. The creative director is Georgia Mosley, and additional development was by Anya Saunders. Editorial policy advisor was Matthew Eltringham, and legal advice came from David Atfield, Andrew Downey and Victoria Ingham. The archive in this series is from Fremantle Simcoe Limited, Mentorn Media, Brooklands Radio and BBC Archive. Thanks as well to Bina Katani, Cassian Harrison, Priscilla Parish, Tom MacDonald, Satyesh Manharaja, Christian Dametto, Kate Hall and Naomi Benson.